up? Welcome in. Doug Gottleb in all week for Colin Cowherd, The Herd on Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports Radio, and the iHeart app. Wherever you may be listening, however you may be listening to this show, thanks so much for making us part of your day. That's not a script. I've just listened to Colin as much as you have, and so I want to keep it as normal as possible. The great Holly Saunders is alongside, getting ready to share the news with us and share her thoughts with us on what I think is maybe a missed part of the Lonzo LaVar Lakers. 3 L's. You like that? Lonzo LaVar Lakers discussion.
Alliteration.
Right. Alliteration.
Big words already.
That's Michigan State. I'm just Oklahoma State. We're the Princeton of the Plains. I don't know what they called you up in Spartanville. Michael Rapaport will be joining us. He wants to argue with me, although he lost his voice talking trash on the Big Three, which is Mondays on Fox Sports 1. Chris Broussard will be in. We'll talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. Wait to hear what Kyrie Irving said, how he would categorize. He used it. He used a word to kind of categorize this offseason for the Cavaliers. Plus, J.J. Redick is going to join us, the $23 million man. That's not over the lifetime of a 10-year contract. J.J. Redick is going to make $23 million this year. He's currently on vacation with his kids. I'm just wondering if the wife's like, hun, seriously? Upgrade, okay?
Right.
Like, upgrade, okay? I got the kids. We're moving across the country. $23 million. We're getting the presidential suite. J.J. Redick will join us. Also, Doc Rivers talking about changing the style of Clippers basketball. Is it a subtle shot or is it a not-so-subtle shot at Chris Paul? Got to get to that. But let's talk about Lonzo LaVar Lakers, okay? Because I'm a parent. I have 3 children, and there is no perfect parenting style. You're going to make mistakes as a parent. Like, I have a daughter who's 11 years old, and oftentimes I'll go into her room at bedtime, and I'll just kind of lay next to her in bed, and I just allow her to talk and kind of try and tee her up with questions so that I know what's going on in her life. And there have been times to which she has asked me not to share things, and I've shared them with her mother. And it's like we're supposed to kind of keep this code of my wife and I share those things with each other, but then sometimes I know she has a boy has a crush on her, she has a crush on a boy, and I wasn't supposed to say something. I try and not blur the line between friend and parent, but try and be as relatable as possible as she heads into the teenage years so that she doesn't shut down on me. On the other hand, I also, when she asks something to stay private, I need to keep it private. And it's not a relationship that I had with my parents. And my mom didn't have, or dad definitely did not have that with my sister. And so it's like, again, there's no book that you can buy on parenting which tells you what to do. It's just kind of a go-by-feel sort of thing. So LaVar Ball, I think by all accounts, is not a perfect parent, but he's not a horrible parent. There are people who will say, like, look, he's putting way too much pressure on his kid. He's putting cart way before horse. And with that kind of pressure, we've seen failure in the past. Case in point, in Southern California, Todd Murnovich. On the other hand, he's kind of been Babe Ruthian in that he pointed to center field and called his shot. I mean, he did say they'd win a national championship with UCLA. They didn't. But he predicted the Lakers. He predicted greatness. He predicted a change in culture. And so far, he's kind of nailed most of those predictions. Lonzo has been, in many ways, as good or better than advertised at every level up until this point, and he's landed in his hometown of Los Angeles. And even Magic Johnson believes that he is a game-changing player for the Forum Blue and Gold. And so with that in mind, like, there is a certain, he said it, Nostradamus, it actually happened. So I could make the case to you that while many parts of LaVar Ball, as a dad, as a basketball guy, as the son of a former basketball coach and a brother of a basketball coach and a guy who we have our own program within the AAU community, there are parts to LaVar which I really dislike. Okay, I don't like the fact that he called out, you can't win a national championship with 3 white guys because you can't guard anybody. Like, well, by the way, Lonzo's half white. Okay, so is that 3.5? Like, you know, like there was no level of accountability for even Lonzo's shortcomings in what happened to UCLA. even if there is some modicum of truth to some of the things he was saying about the lack of defensive prowess at UCLA. There are parts to LaVar I don't like. And I won't do as a parent of my son, who's 8 years old, who I do think could be a star athlete. On the other hand, here's the statement I will make. It's a lot like in marriages. The idea of relationships and that you have to be exactly like your spouse is not accurate. Sometimes you need a spouse that fills in the holes in your personality. And whether this is a relationship or it's friends or father, son, I would make the case to you that while LaVar Ball is not the perfect parent, and there's many parts of his parenting which I will not employ with my own son, nor would I tell you should employ with your son or your daughter, he might be the perfect parent for Lonzo Ball. I want you to think about this for a second. Like, while LaVar Ball attracts attention, while he is trying to kind of be the head of the Kardashian Kardashian clan of basketball.
He's Chris.
Yeah, he's kind of the Chris. There's kind of like a idiot savant kind of thing going on there, to which he says crazy things that should be laughed off, and it should cause us to turn off our cameras. Instead, it's drawn to him. Mm-hmm. The fact is that Lonzo is not really an alpha sort of personality, and LaVar takes a lot of that pressure away from him. LaVar talks, he just plays. LaVar brags, Lonzo is quietly confident. That it somehow kind of works together, and that if their personalities were the same, it would be way too much, and Lonzo wouldn't be who he is without LaVar. And LaVar doesn't work on his own, but coupled with Lonzo, it somehow meshes. Kind of like that perfect couple. Whereas if you two alphas can't get married, that just doesn't work.
I know that.
Huh?
I know that from experience. That's exactly right.
It's personal experience. That's Holly Saunders, Doug Gottleb in for Colin on the Herd. Here was Magic Johnson recently giving Lonzo Ball the highest praise.
He makes everybody better. And he does something that you can't teach. He gives you a scoring pass. Very few point guards in this league can do that. And so I'm talking about give you a pass that leads to the score, not just passing it to you. I like him because also he's now a great teammate too. So he has a special effect on people.
He has a special effect on people. He's a great teammate. People like being around him. He has his quiet, he's in many ways the opposite of who LaVar is. And then yesterday, Magic said this: if he's getting triple-doubles in the summer league, he's going to get triple-doubles in the regular season. Just like me. When I got here, there was pressure. I was number one pick. I didn't care about that. I'm going to play my game. Lonzo's going to play his game. The great ones do. That's accurate, but it's also the pressure. A lot of that pressure is taken away because LaVar ends up being front and center. When he doesn't play well in the first game of Summer League, it's LaVar that immediately answers questions to TMZ. It's LaVar that also answers questions when he does play well. Like, LaVar just keeps talking and acts like a buffer, and Lonzo can just kind of fit in and blend in and play basketball because of LaVar. Like, it's a crazy way to look at it. But he actually might be the perfect parent for Lonzo Ball. Maybe not. It might flame out with LiAngelo or LaMelo, who went up for a dunk and got hung in an AAU game over the weekend and could be an early offseason recipient of a AAU version of Shaqtin' a Fool. I mean, yesterday, Magic made a point to give Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, new Laker, signed a one-year deal, came over from Detroit, Rich Paul a shout-out in KCP's introductory press conference. Take a listen.
This is a special day for us. Rich Paul, his incredible agent, we want to thank him. And he worked well with us. I mean, this thing took one day, and we made it happen. So, Rich, we want to say thank you for that.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird place in which the Lakers are in. Remember, Rob Pelinka, who's helping run the Lakers along with Magic Johnson, is a former agent. Rich Paul, you know the name. He's also LeBron James' agent. He's like, man, Rich Paul, you were awesome with this. You were really – because the Lakers want to create an environment to which – think of the trigger words in which they're using, right? He makes the passes that leads to baskets. He's a great teammate. He makes other people better. They want to foster this environment to which other people want to come to Lakerland, that Rich Paul feels comfortable in negotiating with them, and that LaVar Ball may be outspoken, braggadocious, but think of who Lonzo is. The Laker thing, it's a crazy circus that's going on in L.A., and you can't take too literally what Magic Johnson says about any player because, look, he thought D'Angelo Russell would be a superstar. You go back to when he was at ESPN or you read his Twitter account, and he's not the greatest evaluator of what's great and what's just okay and what doesn't measure up to. That's kind of who Magic is. But you do have buffers between Lonzo and the real world, and somehow it feels like it's going to work, just like it's worked to get him to this point. Think about it. As much as LaVar Ball stealing the spotlight from the rest of the players at UCLA and even his son and Steve Alford, or some of the negative things that he said, as much as that might make you throw up in your mouth a little bit, he called his shot. His son ends up in L.A. His son's the number 2 pick. His son played at least up to, if not exceeded, any expectations for the Summer League. And they continue to create this environment to which, in a year, people are going to want to come to L.A., which is the opposite of what happened at the end of Kobe Bryant's run in L.A., where nobody wanted to come play with Kobe because it was Kobe's team and Kobe couldn't share his toys in the sandbox. Kind of a weird way of looking at the fact that LaVar Ball's not the perfect parent, but he might be the perfect parent for Lonzo Ball. Well, Holly, I want to ask you a little bit later about you obviously covering golf. You know the relationship between the late Earl Woods and Tiger Woods, and about how in many ways that kind of worked, right?
It did work, and many people like to point out that it was flawed in some ways. I mean, he had Tiger on the Mike Douglas show when Tiger was 2 years old, banging balls out there. Earl knew that he was a prodigy. He knew that. And you can say whatever you want about those two, but they're one of, if not the most famous father-son duo in sports history, I think. And Earl created what was the greatest golfer that we're ever going to see. From 1998 to 2008, we're not ever going to see anything else like that. Nobody hit it like Tiger Woods. You stand behind him on the driving range or anything like that, nothing sounds like that. And the way that ball came off that club face and his competitive spirit, everybody else knew that Tiger was going to win. Those 10 years, we're not going to see that kind of dominance again. But, again, I will point out, in 2001, in an interview with Golf Digest, this is very interesting, Earl said, "I never treated Tiger like a kid. I treated him as an equal. We transcended the parent-child relationship a long time ago and became best friends. Doug, I don't know about you, but my mother was never my best friend. She was always my parent. Always my parent."
Yeah, it's a hard one. That's like when people come over to my house. I don't like when I first meet kids and they call me Doug. I don't know. Maybe I'm a traditionalist. Yeah. You go the Mr. Gottleb thing, which does feel old. And then if at some point you kind of, it's okay, you can call me Doug. I don't like the first thing to be, "Hey, Doug." Like, it's just weird, especially when it's like an 8-year-old kid, right?
It is.
I don't know. But it doesn't always work. Like, I grew up in Orange County. Marv Mrnovich was my trainer. Todd Mrnovich was a legendary high school football, basketball player, and then he went to USC. He was the first-round pick of the Raiders, and everyone knows how that story has come out.
Right.
So it doesn't always work, and some of it just comes down to the wiring of each individual kid. Like, you can sometimes an overbearing parent on a kid that doesn't know how to accept it ends up causing the kid to not want to play the sport,
exactly
or
right.
ends up to have him do something else. For Lonzo's specific and unique personality, he's likable. He wants to be coached. He's sort of soft-spoken in comparison. He wants to make other people better. It's more about the team. LaVar is the polar opposite, and however screwy it might be, the way the kid plays is the way you're supposed to play basketball, making others around you better, and it seems to have worked. Again, not the perfect parenting style,
right,
but much like Earl Woods, at least on the golf course, it was the perfect parenting style for his son to have the confidence it takes to play a game.
For Tiger's personality.
Yes.
He knew him absolutely in and out, yeah.
Upcoming next, I'm going to tell you why the Cavs and real estate have a lot in common. Yeah, we're going to go all HDTV on you. That's upcoming next in The Herd.
Yeah.
Welcome into the herd. Doug Gottleb in for Colin all week alongside Holly Saunders. Thanks so much for making us part of your day. Of course, you can download the herd podcast like 8 million others have going back to last month. And you can listen to the herd, take it with you wherever you may go, wherever you like to listen to this audio. Chris Broussard is going to join us just around the corner. Michael Rapaport will join us today. So too will the newest Philadelphia 76er, J.J. Redick. Does he trust the process to take them to the playoffs this year? J.J. Redick will join us later on in the herd. Kind of interesting, a comment that was made by Kyrie Irving yesterday. Kyrie Irving was asked about the Cavaliers' offseason, and he offered up what I think is kind of an interesting word to describe exactly the state of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Take a listen.
We're in a very peculiar place. We just have to, make sure that all our pieces are aligned first, and, then we go from there. But it's the summertime, a lot of craziness going on in the NBA. So, best to just observe and then see what happens. But obviously there are some things that I'm pretty sure our organization wants to do, and we'll go from there.
Peculiar, the meaning of peculiar is strange or odd, right? They are in a strange or odd place. And I actually think it's an appropriate word, considering here the Cavaliers have been to 3 straight NBA finals, that while they didn't perform well against the Golden State Warriors, there is a sense that they have to do something. Like, we got to do something to keep up with the Warriors. But then there's the change with general manager. There's the rumors that LeBron James is going to leave at the end next year. For Kyrie himself, the discussion that his name was involved in trade discussions. The fact that news has come out that they thought they were going to get Paul George, only to have Kevin Pritchard, the general manager of the Indiana Pacers, be unavailable and kind of go ghost on other teams involved in the Paul George trade. Then there's the other story that the Cavaliers were going to get Jimmy Butler, only because they fired David Griffin or didn't renew David Griffin's contract. That never came to bear fruit. Like, there's all of this. It is strange. It is odd. But maybe more so strange, odd, peculiar that their superstar point guard would say that it's peculiar, right? Like, even if it is peculiar to the rest of us, the fact that he would say it's peculiar makes it an even more peculiar situation.
Absolutely.
Right? My brother he's an assistant coach at Oregon State, and he was once at a coaching clinic, and he told me that Mac Brown would come in and speak to everybody. And speak to all the room full of coaches. And the first thing he would do is he'd go around the room and he'd say, "Hey, coach, how was your season?" And he'd ask all these different coaches. And some coaches would say, "Coach, we had a great year." Coaches all call each other coach, right? It's like I call everybody dude. Coaches all call each other coach, even if they're not really a coach. Hey, coach, hey, coach, how you doing, coach? Anyway, so he'd go around the room and guys would say, we had a great year. Some guys would say, we had a bad year. We only won 4 games. Had a lot of injuries, had some dysfunction. They're just being honest because they're in a room full of coaches. And he would go around to anyone who said anything negative about their program, and he would say, "You're fired, you're fired, you're fired. If you work for me, you'd be fired, because why would you let anyone in on any sort of negativity or dysfunction within your coaching offices?" And the idea is that it's not that peculiar things aren't real. It's that allowing people to believe that there's not a plan, that it's odd, that it's peculiar, that it's strange. Now all of a sudden continues to stoke the flames that LeBron's leaving. It's a mess. Kyrie might be traded. They don't know they don't know the direction of the program. But the biggest thing of the Cavs is there isn't anything particularly wrong with the Cavs, with the exception of, as I told Colin before the NBA Finals began, sports in many ways is about matchups at the highest level. And in team versus team sport, it's about matchups. And even in golf, there's horses for courses, right? Mm-hmm. There's certain courses to which, the reason that Phil Mickelson has probably never won a U.S. Open is that's not his bag. Right?
Absolutely. It's an individual sport, but the course also has to match up. Absolutely. They're playing the golf course.
Right. So, and the style of those setups generally
100%.
Okay, because he's a high risk, and it's a fairways and greens sort of setup.
Yep.
So I told people exactly what Jim Jackson said yesterday on Speak for Yourself in regards to the matchup nightmare that the Golden State Warriors present to the Cleveland Cavaliers?
They're going to dominate in the East. They can't physically get better to guard Durant. That's the issue. I don't care. Now, the way this team is constructed.
So there's nothing they can do
to guard Durant.
Okay, but what about to beat Golden State?
You have to be able to guard Durant, and they can't do that.
It reminds me in many ways. And, look, here's the construction of the Cavaliers. If LeBron's not guarding Kevin Durant, who is? Right? Tristan Thompson can't guard him. Kevin Love can't guard him. You go to the bench, Channing Frye can't guard him. As opposed to LeBron James, who's a matchup problem for most teams. Kevin Durant, okay, maybe you don't want him guarding the whole game. You look at their roster, and that's where Andre Iguodala comes in. Draymond Green, for a period of time, can guard him as well. There are other. The Warriors have a depth of athletes at that position. If you actually look at what the Boston Celtics have done in this offseason, Colin has been critical of them sitting on their assets and not trading those draft picks and maybe playing for future years, but they have transformed this roster from one that is guard dominant, guard heavy, to wing heavy or slasher heavy, if you will, or versatile forward heavy, right? Marcus Morris, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Gordon Hayward, all guys that can play and guard multiple forwards and different. That's the way in which the league is trending, and that's what the Boston Celtics have evaluated and prepared themselves for the next 5 years. That's what you have to be at both offense and defense in order to win in the NBA, as opposed to the Cavaliers. Here's what the Cavaliers are. All right, so, Holly, as you know, my family, we're actually, the moving truck is actually at my house. We're moving from Connecticut second time. This time, I swear, honey, this is the last time, right? Moving from east to west.
There's not much more in this world that I just dislike than moving. It's the worst. Let's be honest. It is.
You know what? She has the kids at summer camp. She's got me here.
She's a wonderful woman.
She appears to be very happy with the process of me not being around. She actually told me, it's not as endearing as she thinks it is, but when she says, what the best part of this move is? You're not here to question all of my moves.
Right, you don't get in the way.
I don't get in the way.
Right.
But in our search for the perfect home, right? Because we've moved enough, she's like, look, I don't want to move anymore because, like you said, everybody hates moving.
It's terrible.
You're trying to find the perfect home. And so we're like anybody else. We watch Property Brothers. We watch HGTV, right? Everybody wants the white kitchen, shiplap, 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 right? Open concept, perfect yard. And there are certain homes that you go into, it's like a Mediterranean style, or a Tuscan style, to which you just can't do that to, right? You just can't. Well, if we knock out this wall, we have the open kind of concept for the kitchen.
But it's weight bearing.
But it's weight bearing, and it's way too expensive. And the thing about the Cavaliers is, I think we all have in our minds this evolution they have to have, this keeping up with the Joneses they need to accomplish. They need to get. But the problem becomes, if you take Kevin Love out and even if you pull off a trade for Carmelo Anthony, you will lose so many of the rebounding, the defense, the ability to be a third wheel and be okay with it at the offensive end. They're not constructed for that type of massive. You're better off in some of these homes leveling it and starting over. You can't do that with Cleveland. You just have to do the best with what you have. But the architecture of this particular team is flawed if you want to have the open concept or if you want to keep up with the Golden State Warriors. It forever seems to be flawed. Let's get to Holly with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
All right, let's get into it. Governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie, was at Citi Field, Doug, taking in a Mets game, and he actually has some athletic ability, which might surprise you. Check it out.
3-2, he's popped up. Rivera giving a look at it. And a souvenir for Chris Christie. Are you kidding me?
How about that? You just noticed him. Boy, you hot, I'll tell you. You just noticed him between innings, and what do you know? He gets a ball.
No bridges were closed in order to capture that baseball.
No, but beaches were closed. He shut down a bunch of New Jersey beaches, then took his family there, then told everybody in New Jersey to deal with it. So my question to you is, if you could close something down, what would you close down? If
I could close something down to close it down?
I'd close the gym down.
405, easy. Done deal. Like, if you're from Los Angeles, you go like, I close down the 405. What was it LBJ used to close down highways in Texas so you could drive really fast? If I could do that in Los Angeles, like, hey, I'm just going to close down the 405 for 45 minutes every day so I can drive home from work, done deal. Absolutely done deal.
No. I would close the gym down because people, like, when I'm working out and you come over and take my machine, the level of rage that I feel, like I need a therapist. Like gym etiquette, I was talking to Mark Schlereth about it.
Yeah.
What's up with that? Like, what is up with people not understanding that?
Well, the problem is you're doing those preacher curls too much. You know, you got taken to the gun show. I'll say this: I've been to baseball games my entire life. I've never caught a baseball. Right? This guy shows up, and I've never caught. Have you guys ever caught a baseball? I've been given baseballs.
Okay.
Chris Broussard says too. You ever caught a baseball?
Never.
And then you have these guys that they go around the country and they know exactly where to sit or where to stand, and they get baseballs all the time.
It's like getting a hole-in-one.
Yeah.
Never happens to the best players. It happens to those who are like a 30 handicap.
I also don't like that Chris Christie had to wear a tie to a baseball game.
He was booed quite loudly, though. That was not discreet. Anyhow, Lakers GM Rob Pelinka introduced Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in a presser on Tuesday and also had some very nice things to say about agent Rich Paul. Take a listen.
Rich Paul and Farrah from Clutch are here today. And I think just their understanding of sort of the free agent market and cap space and all of the things that come into play. When Rich texted me and said, hey, I see you and Magic have been really, really careful with your space. You're being very patient. Let's talk. It was like, a lightning bolt hit us, and we said, gosh, this has to be our focus. We got to find a way.
Whoa. This has now sparked some speculation because Rich Paul also reps LeBron James. So is this a group effort to get him over to the Lakers?
Yes.
You think so?
They're not even smart enough to be subtle about it.
Right, it's not even close.
Oh, let me tell you about Rich Paul. Did I mention Rich Paul? Rich Paul is amazing. He is incredible. Like the 1-year deal is exactly what J.J. Redick's agent did with the Philadelphia 76ers. I'll ask J.J. when he joins us if his agent got recognized at the press conference. Did I mention Rich Paul was incredible? He sent me a text message. It's one of the great text messages of all time. I actually screenshot it, sent it to everybody in the organization. That's what I did. Like, oh boy. They're not even subtle about it. It's like it's like when you're sitting there and the husband and wife are arguing and you're being the single guy is being super nice to the wife, knowing that a divorce is in fact coming, and you're like, oh, let me tell you, you're on the right side of this argument for sure.
That surprisingly, though, wasn't even the most interesting part of that presser, Doug. Rob Pelinka also said he had some very high praise for KCP, and the high praise, just take a listen to this. We'll get to that in a minute.
I would venture to guess there's people in the room that are familiar with the stories in the book of Genesis, where there was a time when the Israelites were wandering in the desert and all of a sudden bread came down from heaven. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what today feels like for us to have KCP join.
So now you know what I mean when I said high praise. I mean, literally, I don't pretend to know Mark from Luke from John from Corinthians. But in this metaphor, Doug, it sounds like the Lakers are the Israelites and KCP is the bread from heaven. No? Like, is this over the top?
The Israelites, didn't they ate unleavened bread which escaped Egypt, right? And then there was the frogs.
I believe it was called
Pharaoh,
manna.
Right? And then they were, we'll ask Broussard. He knows more about, dude, there's nothing more over the top than Magic and Pelinka at press conferences. Like, if you ever feel bad about yourself, what you need to do is organize some sort of press conference and just have Rob Pelinka and Magic Johnson say something about, hey, can you say something nice? And they're so over the top about things, it's almost uncomfortable. It actually is uncomfortable. That was uncomfortable. Comparing Moses and the Israelites to Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and a 1-year contract with the Lakers is one of the most bizarre comparisons I've ever heard, and it sounded as forced as anything you can possibly imagine.
I mean, if I could ever be compared to manna from heaven, I feel like that would be, I could die a happy woman.
I was thinking Mary. That's what I was thinking, actually. And that's the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Oh, that came out nicely. I really did. Let's welcome in Chris Broussard, covers all sports. Of course, has his own radio show on Fox Sports Radio.
Welcome.
He and Mark Willard, and of course, you see him daily on Undisputed. Very casual today.
I was rushing to get in. I got the late notice that I was on at 12:30 Eastern.
How'd you get the late notice? We knew you were on. I got here at 6 in the morning. We knew you were on. What late notice?
Yeah, it was a couple hours ago. I had planned stuff for the morning because I was supposed to be, on later.
Okay.
And so,
listen, if you want to go, you can go.
No, I'm glad. And look, I'm like you. I'm not that comfortable with the biblical metaphors.
Right. And you actually know.
But if it's LeBron, maybe. If
Right.
it's Paul George, but Kentavious Caldwell-Pope.
Yes.
What's he gonna say if they get LeBron? It's just all over.
It's the second coming.
Yes,
definitely.
that's exactly what it is.
Coming.
Yeah.
He is risen. That's
Yes,
it's going to be like Easter.
Like Jesus rose from the dead.
Yes.
The Lakers are rising from the
Yes,
dead because of LeBron.
Yes, I
That's
can't.
all you got left. Yeah.
That's really all. Or maybe he goes kind of more Greek mythology in the Phoenix. Phoenix is Greek mythology, right?
Yes.
I have no idea.
Rising from
I
the
know it
ashes.
from the Wu-Tang, one of the Wu-Tang.
Also
rising like
also,
the Phoenix.
interesting what brought us to that metaphor. Okay, so they're not even being clever about it. I know that the Lakers are trying to be nice to every agent, right? One, because Pelinka is a former agent, so people think, okay, now are all his former clients going to become Lakers? Is that?
Yeah.
I think there's part of that, and I know they're trying to be nice to Brandon Ingram's agent because you don't know who's going to be out there, but
You have to deal with these guys. You have to
right,
do it.
but the infatuation with Rich Paul, it's not like tampering, but it's just you got to be a little bit more clever than what they did yesterday.
No question. Here's the thing about Rich Paul, because other people have said, oh, KCP is going there. He got $18 million. LeBron's definitely headed there. The thing to know about Rich Paul is obviously LeBron is the guy that's gotten him started and his great friend and all that. I get it. But if you look at Rich Paul's history, and actually knowing Rich and talking to him too, he has not done deals just based on LeBron. So to tie KCP to LeBron's definitely going there is erroneous, because when he signed Tristan Thompson to what he get, $80 million with the Cavs,
yes.
and J.R. Smith, I believe $57 million. Those deals were based on getting those players absolutely as much money as they could get.
Correct.
They weren't based on necessarily what's best for LeBron. What's best for LeBron would have been getting Tristan at about $60 million and JR less money,
which I think
would have given him room.
Which I think is the flaw to LeBron's approach, which whether it's hands off or whether it's I want to get all my boys paid, which is very possible, is very reasonable. The problem is he especially, even more so than Rich Paul, has to have the foresight to look, we got to take a little bit less so that we can have a little bit more. And now his critique of the Cavs, which is they're not doing enough. Financially they've done enough. It might not be the smartest play.
They have the highest payroll in the league.
Right. And so if anything, by having his hands off, it's actually been to his detriment.
Yeah, and I do think, look, he said when Tristan was, in negotiations, we need one of our key guys here, things like that. But he is, for the most part, hands off in those negotiations. But what you know about LeBron is he wants players to get paid.
Yeah.
That's why he's taking the max. And that's why, when Steph Curry got the $200 million, he tweeted he should get $400. He wants players to get paid, but that's not necessarily best for your basketball team.
He was on the executive committee when they agreed to the collective bargaining agreement, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
I love the fact, who agreed to this deal? Who agreed to this salary cap? LeBron, that was actually you. And but it's a bad deal. It was collusion by the owner.
A lot of people don't remember, a lot of younger people especially, they don't remember the time when there was no maximum cap on individual salaries.
Right.
You know, I mean, that was just 1998.
But there was also no minimum. That's the you know, there was no max, but there was no ceiling, but there was no floor. So teams that weren't competitive couldn't spend. That's what's actually gotten us the Kentavious Caldwell-Pope contract and the J.J. Redick contract. You have to spend a certain amount of money, so you do it short-term overspend so that you have cap flexibility in years to come.
And also, Michael Jordan was never the highest paid player on this team until his last 2 years.
2 years, he got $30 million.
So that's what comes with all that not having a max cap and stuff.
I want to ask you about what Kyrie Irving said, and if it's the perfect word to describe the Cavs offseason. I also want to ask you about a Carmelo Anthony story, which is out there. Chris Broussard will continue to join me and Holly Saunders. This is The Herd. Doug Gottleb for Colin, The Herd on Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports Radio, the iHeart app. Chris Broussard, Holly Saunders continue to join us here. So we played the sound a little bit earlier. Kyrie Irving said that they're in a peculiar place in Cleveland. Peculiar is strange or odd, and I kind of think that's appropriate. So what do they do next? I mean, is it a Carmelo trade? Did they wait to the trade deadline? Like, they are in a peculiar place. It's weird to hear him say it, but they are in a peculiar place.
I think what he means by peculiar, and I agree with you, is a perfect word choice because it's very peculiar to have an owner that gets rid of the GM, no matter how you feel about David Griffin, before the draft and free agency is about to start. That's peculiar. It's peculiar to meet with Chauncey Billups for 2 weeks and then lowball him and you haven't interviewed anybody else. So you have nobody else, you know, as the plan B, and you get left at the altar by Chauncey. So in that and you still have not named a general manager yet. We know Kobe Altman is doing it and looks like he'll probably get it. But this is all peculiar. As far as the roster, though, look, they're capped out. I actually think, and I'm not going to praise this too much, but the Jeff Green move isn't bad. Theoretically, you can throw him out there with LeBron and Kyrie and play a smaller lineup, and he can guard Kevin Durant, you know, to some degree. So for what the money you gave him and all that, it's not a bad move. I just think this roster, look, you have the best player in the world. You have 2 perennial all-stars. You have a good cast of role players. In addition to looking for other players you can add to make the team better, you also need to figure out what is the best system. And I mean, from Ty Lue to LeBron James, they need to figure out what is the best system for us to play. Is it what we're doing? Maybe. But is there something else we can do? I would have liked to see LeBron James go into post more and exploit that matchup. So in addition to trying to get a Paul George, I think LeBron should be working on his post game. I think Kevin Love could be in the post more. And they should tell Kevin, look, work on your post game this summer. Oh, and we're going to go to you in the post. We're not just going to plant you at the 3-point line.
They did try and go to him in the post, like in game 1. He couldn't score on some of the guards of the Golden State. Like in fairness to the Cavs, I agree with you that they should be working on
looking internal.
You know, and I understand that if you look at analytics, a post-up shot is it's not as efficient as shooting threes or shooting layups. You know, kickouts or layups is what you're looking for. On the other hand, there can be kind of the body blow effect to it. You can get into foul trouble. You can also slow the pace of the game there, and they lose the game in pace, as you mentioned many times, against the Golden State Warriors. This story from the New York Post. As Carmelo Anthony continues to push for the trade to Houston, the Knicks want to at least talk to him about the possibility of continuing with the organization. What's your read on why he won't even have the conversation about remaining with the Knicks with Phil Jackson not staying there?
Well, obviously, you know, Phil just threw him under the bus. And you're right, Phil's gone. But Steve Mills was right there with Phil. And Steve Mills is now the president. Now, Steve has had a good relationship with Melo, and I do think it can be mended. And it's not nowhere near as bad as it was with Phil. But to Melo, it wasn't Phil was the driving force, but Steve Mills was on board. He was on board with it. And now you have a GM in Scott Perry who rightly is coming in and saying, look, first of all, he's got a relationship with Melo from the past. And he's always liked Melo in his game. And he said, why are we giving up 22, 23, 25 points a game for stuff we don't want just to get him out of here?
Isn't that really what this is, though, is that they have an offer for Melo. They have a team he wants to go to, but it's clearly not a good enough offer.
Exactly.
And so they want to negotiate from a point of strength, talking about the possibility of coming back, maybe talk to Cleveland when Cleveland's front office dust settles, and see if they can get another offer there. And just like anybody else who's selling an asset that has a declining value, try and drum up business by getting two offers to compete against one another.
It is trying to reset his trade value because Phil killed it. That was the damage in addition to ruining your relationship with Melo. Making Kristaps Porzingis say, wow, that's how you talk about a future Hall of Famer. You also ruined his trade value. So now they're trying to build it back up again. And I'm not saying there's no way that he could end up playing in New York this year, but they are going young. They do want to build around Porzingis and go with a young roster. So for them, if they can get what they want, draft picks, young talent, maybe a veteran on a 1-year deal who doesn't hurt their cap going forward, they would do it, but they've got to get his value up.
I got about a minute left. Will it, if he goes to Houston, will it work?
I think those three players, Harden, Paul, and Melo, would be great with like a Greg Popovich coach who's going to adjust to those players. And I think Mike D'Antoni is a very good coach. I voted for him Coach of the Year. He won it. But I've never seen him adjust. In New York and L.A., he played the same way he did in Phoenix and Houston when he didn't have the personnel for it. And so he doesn't really like the mid-range game. So now he's got not only Chris Paul's mid-range, but Melo too. So,
and he doesn't like ball stoppers, and they're both ball stoppers to go along with it. It's the individual pieces aren't as good as the sum of the parts. Is the opposite of last year. Chris Broussard, you'll see him on Speak for Yourself a little bit later on. Jerry Jones is calling the kettle black in speaking about Ezekiel Elliott. We'll get to that next in The Herd. What up? Welcome in. This is The Herd on Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports Radio, and the iHeart app. I am Doug Gottleb filling in for Colin. Wherever you may be listening, however you may be listening to this show, we appreciate you being part of the Herd family. We encourage you to download the Herd podcast. Holly Saunders is sitting in for Christine Leahy.
Hello, hello.
I'm Doug Gottleb. Greatest city in the world, City of Angels, where we broadcast live from. The greatest country in the world, the United States. I know this because I have actually lived in other countries. I have lived in other cities. And, a matter of fact, I just came back, 72 hours ago from Israel, which is a remarkable, spiritual, religious place. And it's as close as you can get to the United States once you cross over the Atlantic or the Mediterranean.
Really?
Or yes,
I've never come near there.
I'm just saying,
I'm not a world traveler. What's it like? What about America? How is it similar?
There's some similarities in terms of terrain to parts of California.
Really?
Like Tel Aviv has a little bit of L.A., a little bit of Miami Beach feel to it when you honestly it does. And then, you go into the desert, it feels like the deserts of California. There's olive trees. There's some of the same citrus fruits you can get, which are delicious and incredible, seedless watermelon. Like there's a lot of – but my point was I was getting around to, which is it ain't America, okay? It's just not. And like they have malls and they have places you can go have coffee, and they have some, they got McDonald's and they got Domino's and they got some of the same stuff. But when you see Old Glory, it's a little different. And then similarly, like as much as the descent into the United States from another country feels like home, there's nothing like the descent into the 213. When you're like, this is...
No, I hear you.
This
on
is
that,
like, the taxes are high and the cost of living's high. Yeah, there's a reason. There's a reason.
It's the greatest. You're right.
It is.
You're right.
It's the best. Holly's alongside. We're going to be joined by Michael Rapaport, who continues to run his mouth on social media about me. And, of course, that's because he's part of the Big Three, and he's talking trash in the Big Three. He'll be joining us. We'll talk the disaster of the Knicks, and we'll talk to him about all these different things. I want to ask him about LaVar and Lonzo Ball and what LaVar said about Lonzo not wearing the Big Baller brand shoes. I thought kind of interesting stuff. Yep. We also continue to cover the Dallas Cowboys and Ezekiel Elliott, and we kind of wait, not necessarily on bated breath, But we are waiting to hear at some point what becomes of this story, where he got into some sort of kerfuffle, which led to a Donnybrook. You know, it wasn't really a fight. It seems like it was two hits, right? He hit a dude and the dude hit the ground. And by all accounts, and I don't know who had it coming to him, whatever, but like no one seems to be denying that this happened or that it was Zeke. And we talked yesterday about the fact that it appears to be a pattern of behavior, not anything outside of the incident, which never rose to the level of criminal charges with a woman. But there were photos of her having, a red spot on her neck, which at some point he was alleged to have caused whatever happened. We don't seem to know. But the league did not think it came to the level of suspension, and local authorities didn't seem to think it came to the level of criminal charges. That said, there's enough stuff going on to where Jerry Jones spoke about it last night in Dallas.
Franchise has always been front and center. It actually was before I became involved. Our players know when they come in. We articulate and really try to inform our players of the interest and the amount of exposure, the amount of transparency there is in their lives. And like all of us, we do good some days and don't do good the others. That's not to be confused with the tolerating of bad behavior or illegal behavior. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just learning that your every move will be scrutinized.
So Jerry Jones, I think there was like all of us, there was a little bit of accountability. Jerry Jones, we've had the pictures of him with a woman putting her head in his lap. We've had some of the other things that Jerry Jones has done. So there's a certain pot calling the kettle black. On the other hand, there hasn't been illegal activity with Jerry Jones, which is kind of where he differentiated. And he's not wrong. Like, it is different when you're a Dallas Cowboy. It just is. It's different when you're a Cowboy. It's like, if the Jeremy Lin thing didn't happen in New York City with the Knicks, if Jeremy Lin, who's now a member of the Nets, if he had accomplished for 2 weeks, he dominated the NBA and dominated the headlines. If he had played the exact same way with the Brooklyn Nets, it wouldn't have been a national story, even though he was an Asian American ball player. With the Knicks, it's just different. With the Cowboys, it's just different. It's different in New York. It's different in L.A., and it's different when you have the star on the side of your helmet. And, look, here's the Cowboys. David Irving, of course, was a breakthrough player last year. Got kicked out of Iowa State, and comes through with a couple of incredible games. He has 4-game suspension for PEDs. Damian Wilson arrested with 2 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Nolan Carroll had a Dewey. Randy Gregory had another failed drug test. Now he's suspended for a year. So a little bit of this is the Cowboys, but a little bit of this is Ezekiel Elliott. And, it's interesting that we talked about LaVar Ball to start the show. And I mentioned that I don't believe that LaVar Ball's style of parenting is a perfect one, nor is it necessarily even a good one. It just works for Lonzo Ball. On the other hand, if you want to call him a helicopter parent, you're allowed to. But he is very, very involved in his son's life. Now, the juxtaposition of that with Stacey Elliott. Remember, Zeke Elliott comes from a good home, 2-parent home. And this was a reasonable statement made, I believe, last year. So it's in November of 2016. Stacey Elliott, Zeke's dad, said, "My biggest worry is I don't believe my son knows how to navigate life of being a superstar." This is what he told ESPN the magazine. "He's like a little boy who wants to play football and have fun and enjoy people. We've always said this about Ezekiel ever since he came into the world. He's just happy to be alive. He's just a happy guy, but this world is not." It sounds like not necessarily a naive parent, but a parent who this is crazy. I think Stacey Elliott probably has every intention of being a really good father, being really supportive, but staying out of the way of his now adult son as he explores being a superstar in his chosen profession.
You don't think it sounds like he's blaming everybody else other than his son? You don't think he was blaming anybody there? He saying everybody else, the rest of the world. His son's happy, but everybody else is not.
Yeah, I don't know enough. Probably a little bit of. Again, some of this is parenting, right? When it's your son or your daughter, it gets really hard. Like, I raised them. I know that this is not the person that you're perceiving them to be, and maybe this is. Remember, this is in November, and so there's the possibility of like the marijuana dispensary thing. Like, he didn't go and buy weed, and oh yeah, by the way, it's not actually illegal to buy weed in the state of Washington for a preseason game. Like, this is it's not criminal. Okay. And so I think some of it might be the reaction to or the perception of who Ezekiel is. And he's like, look, he's a happy-go-lucky kid. And sometimes the world wants to suck the life out of you and make you into a robot or change you into a superstar where there's a buffer between you and the real world. And that's not who he is. I think in many ways the intent of Stacey Elliott seems to be to be supportive, to give him a good foundation, to understand your child, and let him make his own mistakes, but he's made plenty, as opposed to LaVar Ball, who's overbearing, involved too much, but yet in many ways that's what his son needs, and maybe Stacey Elliott, who talked about moving in with his kid, might actually need to be a little bit more overbearing. It's an interesting juxtaposition because you'd rather raise your kid the right way and let them explore adulthood for most people, but you have to know your kid.
It's and you have to know balance. The situation. It's a delicate balance.
That's a perfect way to put it. That's what I was kind of searching for, and you found it for me. So look, it's hard for Jerry Jones to be like, hey, look, we got to manage, being a Dallas Cowboy. Like,
nice accent.
Really?
Really spot on.
Really? I am a Monkey fan, right? Like, it's hard when it's like Jerry. You say what you want to say, but Jerry has kind of lived hard and fast with his own personal lifestyle.
You got to walk the walk. Yeah.
So, I don't want to be terribly judgmental because I don't know the situation. But when you're the running back and a star one and a potential face for the Cowboys, a potential greatest running back in the history of an organization that's given us Tony Dorsett and given us Emmitt Smith, among others, that's a tremendous burden to carry. And not everybody is wired for that burden. Not everybody is wired for superstardom. And balancing out, should you be more like LaVar, even though that's not how you normally want to raise kids, as opposed to being more like Stacey Elliott, which seems to be a very wise and constructive and good foundation for having to raise kids, but in this particular instance might not actually allow your kid to become the best that he can be in his chosen profession.
Right. When do you step in? That's what it is.
Yeah. And I think we have that as friends as well, right?
Absolutely.
Like, when do you say something?
Absolutely.
That's a hard thing to judge. When do you say this relationship is toxic? When do you say that person who's in your life, they're not good for your life?
Because we're not there every day. We don't really know. So we're looking from the outside. You're exactly right. That's a really good comparison.
There's a team in sports that has been so incredibly and thoroughly dominant over the past month and a half that it is absolutely taking that sport by storm. And yet, we kind of don't care. When did we actually stop caring about having an incredible regular season? We'll delve into that upcoming next in The Herd. Doug Gottleb and Colin, The Herd on Fox Sports Radio, Fox Sports 1, the iHeart app, alongside Holly Saunders. Today is National Hot Dog Day.
Vile. It's vile.
Oh, Holly, you can't say vile. Like, it's not necessarily good for you, but a hot dog is a part of Americana, Holly.
I understand that, but I don't. Now that I know what most of them are made of, I don't.
Well, not all of them. Like 100% beef hot dogs. Have you been to Dodger Stadium and had a Dodger dog?
I have not.
Okay, so you can't.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay, so AT&T Stadium
with strawberry shortcake and a variety. It was delicious. But you know what? When I think of hot dogs, I think of volume eating contest, and that is not okay. Like, that is not. You enjoy that? You like that?
No, I don't. But
that's the first thing I think of.
But so I think of hot dogs first. How do you have your hot? Well, you don't eat hot dogs. You
Correct.
I don't
can't
really be in on this
conversation. Any certain way. What about you?
Look, hot dogs are one of those things. It's kind of like popcorn where it smells better than it tastes. Like, you can't walk past a hot dog and go like, man, a hot dog sounds really good right now, right? It just smells so good. I'm okay. The hot dog snobs, like, you can't put ketchup on a hot dog. Why? I can put whatever the hell I want on a hot dog.
Why not? Aren't you supposed to put ketchup and mustard on it?
You're supposed to put mustard on a hot dog. Ketchup on a burger, mustard on a hot dog. It's just kind of one of those.
Is that like red wine with steak and
fish
with white wine?
Yes.
Okay,
that's exactly.
On a different level, obviously. On a very different level.
A much different level, but it's supposedly that's. I think it's the spicy with the salty. I think that's kind of what it is, as opposed to the sweet with the salty.
I'll let you handle this. I have no.
But I like ketchup, a little bit of relish. I like some onions. I'll even take. You want to put some kraut on it. When I think of hot dogs are synonymous with baseball. They just are. Hot dogs is popcorn is more. Hot dogs and peanuts are synonymous, and maybe a cold beer with baseball. And I was watching last night, and look, I understand that the White Sox made a 7-player deal where Todd Frazier and it was David Robertson going back, part of the package going back to the Yankees. Robertson is a setup guy and a really good one when he was with the Yankees. Going back, so Frazier was from Jersey, home run hitter, all-star, third baseman. I play first base. It was a big deal, and so, look, the White Sox aren't good, plus they're trading away any of their assets right now. And Clayton Kershaw shuts them down for 7 innings and didn't even have his good stuff. Like, he's like, it's a little rusty. How many runs you allowed? 0. Yeah, tough day for the best left-hander we've seen maybe since Sandy Koufax, right? And, of course, Kenley Jansen comes in, gets a save. And the Dodgers have won 30 of their last 34 games. 30 of their last 34 games. And I don't think anybody in the real world cares about it. So you're like, Gottleb, why are you talking about the Dodgers winning 30 of 34, 10 in a row, and no one cares? And remember, this is a team that was, what were they? They were 22-18, and now they're 63-29. Like, how's my math? Is that 43-11? 65-29. Okay, so my math is they're 43-11? 43-11. Right? Over the last 54 games. That's insane. Those are insane numbers. And we're in this weird time in sports where we really don't care about the regular season. Like, it doesn't. Do you remember when the New England Patriots lost to the Giants the second time in the Super Bowl? I'm going to make this statement today, and I think that most people who actually take a breath and think about it would agree with me. That's the best Patriots team that Tom Brady ever played on. That's the best one. Okay. That was his best year. 50 touchdowns. Didn't he have 50 touchdowns that year? Okay. Randy Moss was on that team. They went undefeated in the regular season. They went 18-0 until losing. That was the fluky David Tyree catch against the helmet. So that was the first time, right? That's 2007. So the first Patriots loss to the Giants. That was the best team that he ever played on. It's not really arguable. And yet, we don't even, when you list, the NFL Network, they have like the top teams of all time, like that was the greatest team of all time. Like, you can't have a discussion about a great team of all time that didn't win a Super Bowl. They lost one game the entire season. They completely and thoroughly, I think people forget about how incredibly dominant that offense was for about the first 12 to 13 games of the year. Like, the Giants nearly beat them last game of the regular season, then did beat them in the Super Bowl. Fluky catch, some other things, and the pass rush was incredible, and Brady wasn't as good as he had been in the regular season. But still, if you play 19 games and you lose one game in the Super Bowl on a fluky play to which could have been called dead, could have been called in the grasp for Eli Manning before he threw the ball and David Tyree catches it. I don't know, butterfly effect. If that play doesn't happen, the Giants don't win. The Patriots are the greatest team in the history of the NFL. And yet, we don't even consider it because we don't care about regular seasons. Like, the Golden State Warriors, granted, they're better this year than they were last year. But no one would consider last year's 73-win team one of the great teams of all time. And I think the Warriors, they get the benefit of the doubt because they won a championship the year before and they won a championship the year after. But the truth is that the 2016 Warriors, 15-16 Warriors, that team won 73 games. That had never been done before. But because they lost in Game 7, remember, they lost in Game 7. Draymond got suspended Game 5. Andrew Bogut got hurt, and they still needed Kyrie Irving to hit a contested three-point shot, LeBron James to make one of the all-time great blocks. And look, if Andre Iguodala simply dunks the basketball instead of laying it in off the glass, we're not having this discussion. And the Golden State Warriors are the greatest, we could make the argument, I don't think they were, but maybe greatest team of all time. But they lose their last game in somewhat kind of fluky end-of-game fashion, much like the Warriors, and we don't consider it. The LA Dodgers are having, and they could fade, they could change, they could do like the Cubs did last year where they lose kind of interest and they shut guys down and they struggle in August and they struggle in September and then try and reinvigorate themselves. Like, this all could happen. Like, the Dodgers have won 30 of 34. They're on an unbelievable run. And because, I guess, Kershaw hasn't been as dominant, he's struggled in seventh innings in playoff games in the past. Because the Dodgers, this construct of the Dodgers has never won a World Series, we're not even allowing ourselves to think this could be one of the all-time great seasons or one of the all-time great teams. Like, we're in just this weird place in sports where it's like, not good enough. Got to win this last game. And I think it's asinine. But really, you want to get
Great
down
word.
to it. It just
Great
is.
Word. I agree.
It's like, why aren't the Patriots, that remind me, in 2007, won the New York Giants 9-7 on the season? Wasn't that their regular season record? Something like that? Right? Like, they're the wild card team. Remember, I had to win 3 road games in order to get to the Super Bowl, which is an unbelievable run, but that's not an unbelievable team. The other team won 18 consecutive games in a league which is designed yearly. They're 10-6. That was the 10-6 year. The other year was the 9-7 year, right? Like, they had 2 years in which they're very, very average and got to a Super Bowl. And I understand pass rush. I understand Eli better in the big game than he is over the life of a season. Like, I get all of these things. But isn't it crazy that we can't even allow ourselves the possibility of calling that Patriots team? Tom Brady has his greatest season, plays with his best surrounding talent. They took the league by storm with their offense to start the year and never look back. Get to a Super Bowl, lose on a fluky play. It's not. And I think the perfect embodiment of that is the Dodgers, who, do you see this number? Clayton Kershaw has won 95 consecutive starts in which he's gotten 4 runs support or more. Like, what that means is, like, he hasn't been great every night, but if you give him some run, like, he hasn't been bad. If you give him some run support, he's never blown up. He hasn't had one of those nights to which he was just giving up singles and doubles and home runs. Like, the level of consistency is really, really remarkable. And we're in this all-or-nothing championship. And I guess part of that leads me to the other, we criticize athletes for, some will always criticize athletes like Kevin Durant for chasing the ring. Like, why did he chase the ring? Well, because if Kevin Durant hadn't gotten that ring, we could never have the discussion about him being one of the all-time great players. It can't happen. Mm-hmm. Like, Kevin Durant was better in the NBA Finals than LeBron James. Right? He played essentially the same position. He was better in the fourth quarter. He hit bigger shots. LeBron couldn't guard him. He was better. LeBron statistically averaged a triple-double. But if you look at what do you do in the fourth quarter? Does your team win? And how do you do against the guy at your position? Kevin Durant was better. Check, check, check. Better in the fourth quarter. Team won. And better than the guy in the fourth quarter against the guy who's guarding him. But to be critical of Kevin Durant is to be completely obtuse to the way in which we judge sports now, which is you either win a title and then we can judge your greatness, or everything you've done just to put yourself in that position doesn't matter to us. And if you don't believe me, I give you the 2007 Patriots, I give you the 2016 Golden State Warriors, and right now I give you the LA Dodgers, who have won 30 of their last 34, and no one considers them anything legitimate until they win the World Series. Let's get to Holly with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Okay, we touched on this Monday when Whitlock was in. Terrell Owens sent a message to Ice Cube that he wants in. He wants to play in the Big Three. Here's a clip if you missed it.
I tried to get into that league. I had some guys, Rashad McCants and some other guys, that tried to talk to a couple people to get me in there. And I guess I got to go to the higher, to talk to the powers that be. So I got to get Ice Cube's number. Hey, Q. Hey, my football prowess, that speaks for itself. Let me come on. I like what you guys are doing, man. Hey, let me come out there, man, and display some of my skills, and let me play against some of the best, man.
All right, so there's his proposition, and now here's the update. TMZ caught up with Ice Cube, who was very direct in his response. Take a listen.
T.O. playing the big three, man?
Big three for NBA players.
That was Kurt, not Kurt Cousins. Doesn't sound like Cube is even entertaining the possibility here. Do you think T.O. deserves a chance?
No,
Doug?
he's not a basketball player.
Okay.
Look, T.O. used to play in summer league stuff before, and if you watch him, he looks like a football player playing basketball. He was a great at the time. He was a great athlete. Let's also remember we're talking about 40-year-old Terrell Owens. Okay, we're talking about Terrell Owens,
yes.
his athletic prowess, he's not even the freak athlete he used to be. But I don't know if there's a healthy enough respect for how good former NBA players are. And I know they don't move like they used to, but you know what else former NBA players don't do? They don't miss open shots. Their level of skill, because they've spent 10,000 hours in a gym, is obscene. And so T.O. thinking, hey, look, it's not Celebrity Apprentice, dude. You don't just, hey, I played basketball. I can play basketball now. No.
So not just because he's athletic.
You can't guard him. It'll delegitimize a league that struggled, I think, before we saw the product to legitimize itself. And now that you watch, you're like, dude, it's really good. It's kind of a thing right now. It would delegitimize it to me, much the way that I think we're running the risk of delegitimizing UFC or boxing with this McGregor-Mayweather thing.
All right. On Monday, we also discussed the Pelicans signing Rajon Rondo and what kind of environment that will create for Anthony Davis, considering they already have Boogie Cousins down there now. Chris Mannix is reporting that the Celtics are preparing to make a run at Davis if he is, in fact, unhappy. Doug, he has a contract through 2020. What are they going to do? Trade for him? What happens here?
Well, remember, they have the most assets of anybody in the NBA. They've sat on these assets. They have the 3 first-round picks next year, as well as, Jake Crowder that they can move on from, a Jaylen Brown that they could trade away. Isaiah Thomas is a pending free agent next year. There's all kinds of different things they could do. Just, hey, pick your package that you want. We'll get Anthony Davis. So they have the most resources to make this move. I actually like the move from this perspective. The Pelicans re-signed Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday grew up in Southern California. He's best when he isn't always on the ball. He's a great playmaker playing off the ball some, and Rondo coming off the bench will allow Drew Holiday to play some with him, and I kind of like it. I actually think as long as Rondo is as he was in the playoffs before he got hurt, playoff Rondo, I think this might work in New Orleans, and they've constantly tried to reconfigure themselves to living up to their hype with the talent.
And over to the NFL, Atlanta is using their epic Super Bowl collapse as motivation moving forward. Here's Matt Ryan talking about the scar tissue. Take a listen.
It takes a little bit of time. There's no question about that. I think that the further you go and don't end up winning that, the tougher it is. But at the same time, for me, it was one of those things that you think about it, you try and assess what you could have done better, what you would do differently moving forward. And then ultimately, you've got to move on. I think you'll always have a little bit of that scar, that kind of drives you. And that's fine. Never let go of that. But our focus is 100% about what we're doing and what we're moving forward to.
That sounds great, but the reality of it is 28-3. If you take a knee instead of throwing the football,
right,
you win the Super Bowl.
Right.
It's the one that got away. Every guy remembers the one that got away. Every athlete remembers the championship that got away. And the likelihood of returning to the Super Bowl when everything goes right, you look historically, teams that lose the Super Bowl don't get back to that level the next year. It's a professional way of handling the question. The reality of it is, the likelihood is heading forward, anytime Atlanta gets a big lead, now they're going to get super conservative with their play calling as opposed to what they did in the Super Bowl.
But as an athlete, Doug, can you actually move on?
Dustin Johnson did. Think about that.
Okay.
Dustin Johnson
That's a good example.
choked away the U.S. Open, and I thought for sure
At Chambers Bay, yeah.
Right. Then the next year he comes out the U.S. Open
At
and
Oakmont,
he wins
stuffs
it
on the 18th hole.
I mean
yeah.
that takes some lower intestinal fortitude that not everybody has. DJ had it. We'll see if the Falcons had. You like that I brought out
Look
Dustin
at
Johnson.
you! Wow,
I thought
coming
that
up big and
I thought
quick.
that came out nicely. I really did. That's
delicious and wonderful.
That's Holly with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
He's famous for
Herd Lie News.
He's famous for a lot of things, right? He's in Howard Stern's fantasy football league. He's got the I Am Rapaport podcast for Barstool Sports. You can see him in Dallas, July 29th. Just go to his website, IamRapaport.com. That's the next day is the Big Three in Dallas. He's the one and only Michael Rapaport, a man of many talents. In fact, clapping for himself. Did you just raise the roof?
I raised the roof because you say, and you don't mention that I'm an acclaimed, esteemed, and one of the most respected actors within the 50-mile radius of where we are right now, Doug. By the way, did you just come off the golf course?
Why is that?
You look like you just played 9 holes.
Oh, he's killing your outfit. I killed it yesterday, Michael.
It's a polo shirt and one that's quite fitting, but one's quite fetching, I might add.
Michael, yesterday he had a short sleeve button down on. He tried to go short sleeve button down yesterday.
I mean, but the fact that when I'm better dressed than the host, we got a problem here. I mean, you look good, you're a handsome guy, you look sharp, you look chiseled. Yes. But I'm just saying though, they got showers here. You could clean up, take a shower.
Do you have a picture of yourself? Is that a picture of yourself?
No, this is the cease and desist collection. It's me and the Kardashians. It's inspired by what they did to defame Ozzy Osbourne, the great Biggie Smalls, the great Tupac, and the Doors. So this is part of the cease and desist collection of the I Am Rapaport Stereo podcast T-shirts. I could send you one. You look better than you are right now coming out here. I mean, your collar's not even hooked up. Get an iron or something.
No,
my man.
actually, that's how the collar I think is supposed to. I was concerned about the collar, but. I'm not going to throw wardrobe under the bus. They said this is actually the best possible version of you. I did not give either makeup or wardrobe a blank canvas, right? This is the best they can possibly do.
No, I think you look good. I do think you're a handsome gentleman, and I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so the Big Three is Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox Sports 1. Yes. Of course, you go to Dallas this weekend. All right,
Chicago this weekend.
Chicago this weekend, Dallas next weekend.
Yes.
Give me the real story. Allen Iverson. He was supposed to play, and then he's sick. He doesn't play. Was it a legitimate illness? Because when we'd seen AI play before, it wasn't the AI remembered. Was there any sort of fear of failure that kept AI out?
First of all, I don't think there's ever fear of failure with Allen Iverson, but he wasn't feeling good. I'm not going to go into what I do know or what I don't know, but I know that nobody would have wanted to play in Philadelphia more than Allen Iverson. It sucked for the fans. It sucked for me. It sucked for Allen Iverson. The games themselves were great. There's no ruse. There's no con. Allen Iverson didn't complain about broken elbows, busted hip pointers and all that stuff when he was in the NBA. So if Allen Iverson could have went out there and played, he would have went out there and played. And it sucked, but the games were great, and the Big Three is kicking ass.
I actually think I wasn't a denier of it. I was just going to sit on the sideline and see. And my fear with the Big Three was once you start kind of the hand-to-hand combat and you allow it to be physical and guys start getting competitive, somebody's going to get hurt. First week we had 3 guys get hurt. And I was like, boy. But I actually think the level of competitiveness has increased.
Yep. Whereas
the fear was after week 2, maybe it might start to sink down. And it's kind of become a thing.
It's become a thing. The competition is they're playing their asses off. They're playing hard. Guys get hurt. You had a 19-year-old Summer League MVP who sat out the championship game but collected his MVP award because he was hurt. He's 19. So if a 37-year-old guy, gets hurt, it happens. It's part of pro sports. It's part of high-level sports. It happens in the rec yard. It happens when you're playing with your kids. The competition has been fantastic. It's been tenacious. Guys are putting it all on the line. It's been sold-out arenas. Every place we go, there's been great crowds, enthusiastic celebrities, stars, NBA players. And I'll put it like this. The guys are playing harder, more physical, more competitive, and with more straight-up sheer passion than I've watched in all of the Summer League, not just that fiasco that they have down in Las Vegas, which I think is an abomination and a disrespect to the NBA. And it's really, to me, it's concerning. I was in the shower the other day, nude, and I was thinking to myself,
wait, does anybody shower with clothes on?
What other way is there?
I was
just painting a picture. I was in the shower nude. Okay, and I was saying to myself, the way the NBA is being shoved down our throat, and these debutantes, and you have Lonzo Ball, who I believe is going to be a really good player, going out to collect his Summer League MVP with the Summer League crowd chanting MVP, MVP, meanwhile wearing flip-flops, collecting a papier-mâché award. Where are we going with this whole thing? The Big Three games, guys are diving after balls.
But they don't have to run up and down the court. Like you were trying to tell me before the show that you get 10 guys from the Big Three and you could beat one of these Summer League teams. And I would grant you that Summer League teams generally aren't made up of all NBA players, but they couldn't. They're not in the NBA because they can't get up and down the floor and play the
One game, you take the 10 best players in the Big Three, let them sort it out.
Many of them were look, awesome NBA players. Chauncey Billups is as solid a dude and solid an NBA guard as you could get, but he can't move anymore.
One game,
up and down the
take
court.
the Summer League All-Stars versus the Big Three All-Stars. I guarantee you they will kick their ass. These guys will get their asses kicked. They will be intimidated. They don't know how to play basketball, and they play with the Summer League it hasn't even been like an N1 game. There's no defense. Doug, you were on the fringe. You wanted to play professional basketball. Correct. If you got into the Summer League.
I played in the Summer League.
Okay. These guys are letting defenders run down the lane. No, I mean, it's
because you can't. Because you can't.
You can't play defense in the Summer League.
No, the way in which it's officiated in the NBA, it's hard. Look, is the level of intensity ramped up the way it is in the NBA playoffs? But like what you're playing in Big Three is a completely different style. It's hand-to-hand combat, to which you can't get away with in the NBA.
It's not as hand-to-hand as it was the first week. They've tapered it down to make it so people aren't getting into fist fights. But it's very physical. It's very competitive. But I guarantee you, and I asked the guys off record. I said, "Yo, would you guys beat?" They absolutely. It's not like these guys are 76 years old. By the way, if you ask somebody off
record, you're not supposed to share that. I don't know if you know how this media thing works.
No, but I asked them on record too, and I put the video up. Deshaun Stevenson, all those with Chauncey Billups. Of course, but they'd kill him. They'd kill him.
But every older guy thinks they'd kill the new generation. All right, we're holding you over. You're sticking with us because I want to ask you. You got to hear this, Rob Pelinka, Magic Johnson, in talking about Contavious Caldwell-Pope yesterday. It's one of the, and I got to ask you about your beloved New York Knicks and what they're doing with Carmelo Anthony. Michael Rapaport will continue to join us and teach us the ways of showering nude next in the Herd.
You don't shower nude?
Of course I. Perfect song here with Michael Rapaport. Doug Gottleb in for Colin. He is humble.
Yes.
No question. He is sitting down. He is humble. Holly Saunders alongside as well. By the way, during the break, Michael Rapaport agreed to be my assistant coach in 4 years in Israel during the Maccabi games.
Done.
Right? I think he wants to. You could have played for the senior team. There's a 45 and over.
Man,
35
my man. Take it easy.
No, I'm saying you could have. It's actually there's. Actually
if I could make the senior team, then that senior team can't be that good.
Well, listen,
there's got to be some better talent out there than me.
There actually is better talent, but sometimes. It comes down to who writes the biggest check and who gets on that, right? Michael Rapaport continues to join us. You can check him out in Dallas the day before the Big Three plays in Dallas. That's, a week from Saturday, so July 29th. In Chicago with the Big Three, which, of course, airs next Monday night on Fox Sports 1. He's recovered. Is Scal's your doppelganger or are you Scal's doppelganger?
I don't understand the comparison. I know that, we're both fair-skinned, but Brian Scalabrine on his best day, if he even thinks about looking as good as me, he should smack himself back to sleep.
Okay, let's listen to
seriously.
the cue. You did an outstanding job on sidelines for Fox Sports 1.
They're calling me the Howard Cosell of Big Three.
Who's they?
I'm just people. I don't want to name names, but people, that's what they are.
Okay, let's see. This is Howard Cosell. Let's see if this is Howard Cosell like.
I hope to God you're wearing sunblock in here because just for your own sake. You're back in the game. How you feeling about this game, Scal?
When I'm done with the game, can I borrow your shirt? I'm going to go have a picnic.
I love him. The White Mamba.
The White Mamba.
I hope he sleeps with sunblock on. I mean, he's like see-through. He's like Sammy Sosa color. Like he's like Pink.
Well, Sammy Sosa killer now.
Yes.
Yeah, Sammy Sosa killer now.
No kidding. Not Sammy Sosa when he was on the juice.
He's more beige now. He's really ecru kind of.
No, he's Brian Scalabrine Pink.
Yeah, he's almost transparent, translucent. What's going on with your Knicks? They get rid of Phil Jackson. Okay, then the thought is they're going to get rid of Melo. Now they're like, Melo, we may want to keep you for 2 years.
It's a pounding dysfunction. And to be honest with you, Doug, I'm not getting emotionally involved this year. I'm not going to memorize and study up on a brand new roster for the 5th season in a row. They had an opportunity to truly clean house. The Phil Jackson thing didn't work out for whatever reasons. Dolan could have said, we're moving forward. Steve Mills, no disrespect, bye. Jeff Hornacek, no disrespect, bye. R.C. Buford apparently was interested. Griffin was interested. There's a handful of other GMs we could have hired. But we're still clinging on to the late 90s and 2000 infrastructure. I don't understand it. I refuse to get emotionally involved anymore. Somehow or another, Carmelo is a sympathetic figure in this because he's kept his mouth shut.
But he hasn't, though. He turned Porzingis against Phil Jackson.
But was he wrong? Carmelo wasn't wrong in being frustrated with what Phil was doing.
Yeah, but Phil was not wrong in being frustrated with Carmelo Anthony refusing to buy into the offense, buy into the triangle offense, which had worked for other superstars with a similar skill set. So, I'm like, look, tell me where Carmelo Anthony has won outside of 6 games in March for Syracuse.
I get that. I'm very well aware of his flaws. But where we are now, if I was Carmelo, I honestly, Doug, I don't have the answers. I'm so disgusted and frustrated with the fact that the Mecca of basketball, the greatest city in the world, I don't care about Rome, Spain, this place in Los Angeles they refer to as a city. It's a desert with a couple of high rises. Chicago, the great city of Chicago, that the big 3, all these places are great. New York is the place to be. Basketball is our game, and the fact that we are in such disarray, and we could have cleaned house, but we're going to head into this year essentially taking, once again, we're going to turn into the Chicago Cubs or the Boston Red Sox of the NBA, where people like myself are going to be like, please let me live to see them win a championship.
You couldn't be more wrong about basketball being a New York game. Like, name for me the great New York basketball players currently in the NBA. It's a very, very short list.
You want to go into the historical
context?
You
want to go historical. I'm talking about present day.
Okay? I get that. But it is the city's game. It is the Mecca. It's the only arena with all its history intact in the NBA. The Staples Center is not where the Magic took place. The Boston Garden is gone. Chicago's gone. You want to play where you think there's history in the Smoothie King Arena?
in fairness,
yeah.
It's not the first Garden, but you're right. They did put $1 billion. Look, here's the biggest problem with New York is that New Yorkers still show up. They keep showing up. Every seat is filled to go see a terrible organization and a terrible team. But I also believe that you're right. It has turned into the, please God, once in my lifetime can we see the Knicks good? And it has, not for lack of trying. Think of the big names. Isaiah. It was terrible. Larry Brown. They paid him $25 million to go away. Phil Jackson, Donnie Walsh. Like, it's really incredible. It's not that they haven't tried. It just hasn't. Nothing's worked.
I have a question.
Yes. By the way, L.A. has far more NBA players than New York does.
Right now.
It's a far better city to live in than New York.
I had no disrespect to all the other cities and all the other countries with more NBA players. Kemba Walker is the sole guy.
Kemba Walker's the best. That's the best you got.
And it ain't so bad.
No,
okay.
I didn't say so.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. But I have a question for you. And I would like you to ask this also. Okay. Answer Holly. Would I turn into one of those rogue, crazy people if the first game of the season, because I've really thought this, and I'm asking you on live TV.
I got 15 seconds.
If I was one of these crazy people to do a ban of the first game of the NBA season, like truly like, yo, we're banning this game. Don't show up. Would you think Michael Rapaport is nuts?
I think the answer is no. Michael Rapaport, check him out. Big 3 Monday in Chicago. I am Rapaport. It felt like Doc Rivers took a shot at CP3. We'll talk about it next. What up? Welcome in. This is The Herd on Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports Radio, and the iHeart app. Wherever you are, However you may be listening to this show, we appreciate you making us part of your day. Doug Gottleb in for Colin for the rest of the week. Big man returns next week. Holly Saunders.
Hello.
Sits in for Christine Leahy. I believe Christine is back tomorrow. You're headed off to the... Well, she's not back tomorrow, but you're not here tomorrow, right?
I'm not here tomorrow. I'm going to Kansas to cover another USGA event for Fox. So
Kansas City or Kansas? Where in Kansas?
Oh, no. It's not.
Where's the actual location?
Radar. It's Wichita.
Wichita,
yes.
What's the name of the course? It's a great course there, right?
There are a couple of them.
And you don't actually know.
I just came for the Women's Open in New Jersey. I've been here for 3 days. On my plane flight there, I will study up on the men's junior. That's what I'm going to do.
I want to get in. Christina Pink is going to join us Thursday and Friday. She does sidelines for the NFL on Fox. I want to get to something that Doc Rivers said yesterday at the introductory press conference for a plethora of new players that no one actually knows. Like, they'd be like, hey, here's all our new guys that we got in the trade for Chris Paul in a second. I want to compliment you, though, on your level of preparedness, not just in your job, but you noticed yesterday that my phone did not have a cover. I somehow misplaced a phone cover when I was in Israel. And you're like, don't worry, just show up tomorrow. I have a phone case for you.
I do.
I was like, cool, right? So you gave me this phone case, which has glitter on it.
Look, Mom. Yeah, my mom was watching that. My mom got that for me, Sandy.
I think it turned out quite nicely.
I think it's beautiful. I think it's
really
lovely.
do. It's got glitter on it. I'm okay with it. Listen, I'm fine. Like, I don't go that way, but if I did go that way, it'd be fine. But I'm very
You're
at peace
welcome.
with. Thank you. Your level of preparedness continues to exceed that of mine. JJ Redick's going to join us in moments. He signed a 1-year, $23 million deal, and he leaves the Clippers behind. I want to ask him about Doc Rivers' comments yesterday. So Doc Rivers introducing his new team of guys that's going to replace Chris Paul. Take a listen to what he had to say about the changes they're going to make in style of play.
Well, we'll have ball movement, That's one of the things, for the most part, that I've always preached. With Chris's skill, you wanted to take advantage of what he could do, and that, he was a guy that needed the ball to make plays. And he did it so well, you kind of changed to do that. If you look at my work, historically, it's been more of a ball movement, cut basketball team, and that's what we're going to get back to doing.
I don't know if that's terribly accurate. That wasn't who they were in Boston, although he did have Rondo, who's a very good passer, but it wasn't necessarily truly a ball movement team. Still, I don't take what he said as a slight towards Chris Paul. I actually took it as a smart characterization in some ways of the skill set of Chris Paul, but also the skill set of the players that they had. Remember, Chris Paul averaged 86.2 touches per game. That's the 8th highest total in the league. Among top 10 players in average league touches, he averaged second in seconds per touch, 4.98 seconds. In other words, he not only got the ball almost every time down the court, but then he held on to the ball longer than anybody else. The Clippers also have the 4th best offensive rating in the league, 110.3. In other words, people like to take shots at the way in which the Clippers played, which was so wildly dependent on Chris Paul, but it was wildly effective. I would defend the way that they played because that's the way you play if you have Chris Paul. And frankly, that's the way you play if you have Chris Paul combined with J.J. Redick, Luke Mbamute, with DJ inside as well. Like, the only other capable ball handler passer is Blake Griffin, and as good a ball handler as Blake Griffin has shown himself to be, and we'll see more of it obviously in this coming year, he's a good passer and ball handler for a power forward, not anywhere near in comparison to Chris Paul. So I don't take that as a slight. I take it as a characterization of their team. It's people want the Cleveland Cavaliers. Why don't they play like the Golden State Warriors? Well, because you don't want Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love and J.R. Smith handling the ball or touching the ball or possessing the ball the same number of seconds or volume of times that you do a LeBron James or a Kyrie Irving. Like, you set a system together based upon the skill set of your players, and whether or not Doc Rivers has done it in the past and he'll do it in the future, like, don't mischaracterize who the Clippers were. They were never truly healthy in the NBA playoffs. That's a big reason they never lived up to the hype as to the the talent that they had, the timing of that talent. Like, I wouldn't be critical of Doc Rivers' style with Chris Paul because it fit their personnel. Maybe I'm wrong. You know who would know? J.J. Redick would know. He's got his own podcast, Chronicles of Redick. And, of course, he also has a mini documentary called The Process with J.J. Redick, which is available at uninterrupted.com tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. The Process, because he signed a one-year, $23 million contract with the Philadelphia 76ers. Now he's kind enough to join us. He's joining us from vacation with his kids. J.J., how are you?
I'm doing good. The boys are asleep right now, so we got a little bit of quiet time here.
All right, good. We don't want to wake them up with you shouting into the phone. Are you doing balcony? Are you doing, like, adjoining room? Like, how are you doing this?
Yeah, we have, like, adjoining room. Oh. Yeah, so I'm not in the main room's bathroom right now, just locked away.
All right, cool. That's not creepy in any way. We appreciate you doing that. Look, Doc said yesterday that he wants to have more ball movement now as you're gone and Chris Paul's gone. And what he said was like, look, when you have Chris Paul, you play to his strengths. What do you think of the characterization of how you guys played last year and whether or not it lacked ball movement in comparison to trying to fit the skill set of your personnel?
Well, Chris is arguably one of the top point guards ever. You want the ball in his hands. It just makes everyone better, makes the team better. I don't know that it was necessarily because other guys couldn't do things, but you certainly want to play to the strengths of your best player. So in a way, I think it's kind of just a natural progression to say, well, this year's team, we're going to play a little differently because we're losing Chris. Maybe we'll have more ball movement. I don't know. I mean, Doc still calls the plays, so it's not like that would change.
Why do you think that your Clipper teams were never able to get out of that second round?
Well, the first 2 years I was there, we lost in a couple of the worst ways possible. And I think, the last 2 years we had injuries in the first round, Blake and CP, and then this year Blake. So, just things never bounced for us the right way. And some of that was our own doing, and some of that was just unlucky.
It's interesting because we talked a little bit earlier in the show. J.J. Redick joining us in the herd here on Fox Sports Radio. Doug Gottleb in for Colin. We talked a little bit earlier about the Atlanta Falcons and how, the kind of the one that got away. Look, you signed a huge deal. You've had a terrific career. You're going to continue to have a terrific deal wherever you play after this year if it continues in Philadelphia. But is there any feeling of, boy, we had a special timing, we had a special group. It was the Clippers, and we could have done something. You still did things that had never been done in Clippers uniforms before. Is there any sense of the one that got away because you were never able to take that next step?
Oh, for sure. The first 2 years I was there, I think we had legitimate shot to win a championship. The dominance that the Warriors have had over the last 2 years, regular season last year and being up 3-1 in the finals last June, and of course winning it all this year. They've been as good as any team in basketball history over the last 2 years. So for us, I think our opportunity was really one of the first 2 years, and I'll look back and obviously I'll be very proud of what we were able to do. But we definitely left. I think we left something on the table.
Utah made it a point to not let you beat them, right? They tried to completely take you out of the game, and they statistically did a really, really good job. Take me into your mindset during that epic series. When you're a pending free agent, and many ways we as fans think you're going to be evaluated based upon the last time we see you, how much pressure did you put on yourself to perform at a high level, considering you knew that free agency was the next thing?
Well, my thing was about the team, obviously. I wanted to do things to help my team win. I wish I could have played a little better in that series. Doc told me and the team in the film session after game one that he wanted me to be a screener and to kind of be in the corner and space the floor because they were paying so much attention to me. So I kind of knew at that point, like I wasn't going to get a ton of shots. I think I had one game where I took more than 4 or 5 shots. So I kind of knew that was going to be the case. In terms of free agency, that wasn't, even on my mind yet. It was more, let's try to figure out a way to get to the second round. around.
In hindsight, should Doc have used you more like he used you previously, or more like he used Ray Allen, move you around the court more to attract more attention as opposed to sitting you in the corner?
Well, I think every playoff series is different. I think you kind of adjust to what you got going or what the other team is doing. And, Doc felt it was best to just put me in the corner. I mean, he even said that after Game 7 that maybe he should have ran for more stuff for me. Stuff action where we get like single side bumps, and with me on the strong side in the corner, like it just didn't come off of me. So he felt like he could kind of exploit Chris and DJ or Chris and Blake in pick and rolls, and have those guys kind of get off.
Right. I mean, look, it's smart. If they're going to hug up on you, you put them on the same side. They can't cover the roll man, and they got alley-oop after alley-oop after alley-oop. It wasn't enough. J.J. Redick joining us actually live from vacation with his family. The Process with J.J. Redick is a new mini documentary, which you can see on uninterrupted.com tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Okay, so you go to Philly. No one's going to argue with the money, right? The money is crazy. It's only for 1 year. But going from a team that, at least in theory, was contending for a championship, as opposed to going to a team that's contending for legitimacy, right? That's really what they need. They have all of these assets, all of these young players. Now you're the veteran that's supposed to come in and be a pro and stabilize this team and just get to the playoffs. What's that like mentally to understand that you're not going to Philadelphia to compete for a championship? You're just going to try and make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I talk about this in the documentary, and I talked about this today on my podcast, but, I know the 1 year deal, it's a crazy number for a 1 year deal. I know that, but for me, it wasn't about the money. I really stressed in the documentary that I really wanted stability for my family, and we've kind of moved off-season homes twice now in the last couple of years. We've had 2 kids in the last 3 years. We've had sort of a lot of change happen to us. We knew we weren't going to be back with the Clippers. I think on June 29th, when I got the call saying they weren't going to offer me any contract. So we really just wanted stability, and there weren't any offers long-term on the table that I liked. There was a 3-year deal from Houston. There was a couple of 2-year deals from other teams, but there was nothing I liked. So the money part of it was more just about I wanted to go to Philly. I thought it was a really unique opportunity, and certainly the 1-year deal at a very high number helped. But sort of the chance to get to your question, sort of the chance to be a mentor and sort of show these young guys how to be a pro, but also still play and try to help them win and get to the playoffs. Like, that's a really unique challenge at this point in my career. And so that's something that honestly is very exciting and a little bit rejuvenating too.
All right, here's a clip from your mini documentary, The Process with J.J. Redick, on the actual pace of free agency.
Greg called, and he said, we need to move on Philly. And I said, okay, well, what about Houston? And Greg said, they're not going to do a 4-year deal. The owner's now saying he'll only do a 3-year deal. So I said, okay, well, I got to go back to our apartment and go talk to Chelsea about what we want to do. How long do I have with this Philly thing? And he said 15 minutes. And I said, no, like, I need at least an hour. He's like, well, I don't know if you have an hour. At one point, I was just laying down on a bench waiting for Mike D'Antoni to call me. That was probably my lowest point of the weekend. I went back to our apartment. I walked in. I told Chelsea what was happening. And, I said, I'm in.
So has there, the moment you agreed to the deal, was there ever any, wait a second, like ever any second thoughts? You talk about the pace. You don't have a lot of time, $23 million, take it or leave it. You decide to take it. After it kind of goes through it, was there any, what the hell did I just do?
Well, on my podcast today, I had Brian Colangelo on, and to get to sort of your point about the pace, I didn't know this till Brian told me this on my podcast, actually, but when Greg called and said you had 15 minutes, the reason was because Brian had just landed in Los Angeles. We had met in Philly the night before. He got on the plane, had just landed in Los Angeles, was headed to a meeting with a player that he won't name. It was Andre Iguodala, and said, we're going to offer, another 1 year at a high number for this guy. If he takes it, then my deal was off the table. So I had to make a decision. Like, that was the point in time where if it was Philly, I had to go there, or I had to say no, and that offer was going to be off the table. once I committed, I called Brian and I committed. There wasn't any sense of like, what the hell did I just do? It was just an immediate flip, and my mindset was like, all right, this is the next challenge, this is the next thing, this is the next phase of our life. Let's figure this out and make the most of it.
Look, you kind of try to have a normal life, right? As you said, we just have 2 kids. You moved from Manhattan Beach to Brooklyn. You bought a place in Brooklyn, but now it's a 1-year deal. Do you buy? Do you rent? Do you move your family? Do you leave them in Brooklyn? Like, it's not that far. Like, how do you approach it?
Well, my oldest is in like a preschool, and I know this sounds silly, but we don't really want to take him out of preschool, so I'm only going to basically be on a 9-month deal. I mean, I'll head down to Philly sometime in September. The season will end sometime in May or June. And, for that time being, my family's going to stay in Brooklyn. I'll commute as much as possible and try to make it work. Obviously, school breaks, weekends, all that stuff. They'll come down to Philly when we got home games. I'll get an apartment down there big enough for all of us. But we're just going to try to make it work. And I've talked to the 76ers about this. Like, if it had been a long-term deal, if it had been, let's say, a 3-year deal, we were going to move the crew down and kind of commute back up to Brooklyn. But it's just a really unique situation for our family right now. We're finishing up our apartment. We're getting ready to move in there finally after buying it almost 3 years ago. My wife's twin, who also lives in Brooklyn, is getting ready to have her first kid. Chelsea really wants to be around for that. So, for this year, we're just gonna kind of commute, and then next summer we'll figure it out, based on what happens next summer.
All right, dude. Well, having the family stay, I get it. I would say, kids in preschool, it's like takes them about 30 seconds to make a new friend in a new preschool. But those Brooklyn preschools are hard. I'm sure she was still pregnant when you were applying to get into there.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it works, man. That's the one thing. Like, I know this sounds crazy, but in New York for private schools, it's like, this preschool is a feeder to the next school, which is a feeder to the next school. And so we, as parents, we just think about those things, and we're obviously trying to give our kids the best life possible.
No question. And no one's going to feel sympathy for you, but you went from Manhattan Beach, which you thought was the most expensive place on earth, to Brooklyn, New York, which is actually more expensive than Manhattan to live in. So these are first world problems, but you do have first world problems. Look, dude,
I only moved to places.
Yeah. Well, but
really high state income taxes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. On the other hand, in the 3 years you've owned it, the value of your apartment's probably, doubled or tripled anyway. So again, we're not crying tears. Dude, enjoy vacation. We'll check out the process with JJ Redick. It's a mini doc tomorrow on uninterrupted.com. Of course, your podcast Chronicles of Redick, which is up now. Enjoy vacation. Thanks so much for catching up with us, JJ. We really appreciate it.
All right. Okay, thanks for having me on, Doug.
All right, that's J.J. Redick joining us live from vacation in the adjoining room's bathroom while his 2 kids nap. Talking about preschool. These are like that sucks. My kids have been to. My daughters are going to be now in their 1, 2, 3, 4. It'd technically be their 5th school, but we're moving them back to put them in the school they were in previous to moving out. So
but they're totally well adjusted, right?
They're certainly well adjusted. They have 0 friends, and I'm the reason why. I think there's a current NFL quarterback who will go down as the best ever, but it's not who you think. I'll explain it to you next in the Herd. Doug Gottleb in for Colin, the Herd on Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports Radio. If you're watching on FS1, you see the man, the myth, the legend, Aaron Rodgers, behind me on the, I don't know what that screen is called, but it's an incredible screen. It really is, right? Like how bad would you want to have one of those? It's technically called the U wall, but it's not it's you being Aaron Rodgers. Here's what's interesting about Rodgers. So he's the next guy up to get the big contract extension, right? And the way it always works in the NFL is whoever the next guy up gets the biggest deal that we've ever seen, I guess with the exception of Kirk Cousins, right? Kurt Cousins. Kurt Cousins, as he's known by the Redskins, Kirk Cousins, as he's known by his mama.
Right.
But look, Kirk Cousins, don't feel bad for Kirk Cousins. He's going to make $24 million guaranteed on a 1-year deal after making $20 million guaranteed on a deal last year. His deal runs through 2019, so it won't be long before both sides start talking about a new one. Mark Murphy is the president of the team, says you need to plan for it. Rodgers, 33. He became the league's highest-paid player in 2013 when he signed a $110 million extension, but now he's fallen behind Derek Carr, Andrew Luck, Carson Palmer, Drew Brees, Kirk Cousins, and Joe Flacco. Quote from Rodgers, when it comes to setting market values, I let stuff like that take care of itself. I know my value in the league. I know my team appreciates me. I'm going to continue to make myself an indispensable part of the roster. When you do that, when your time comes up to get a contract, you usually get a contract extension. He also went on to say, I know what my value is, and the team compensated me really, really well a few years ago. I hope in that situation, in a couple of years, it's a no-brainer. That means I'm playing well and the team's moving in the right direction, and that's what I can control. The other stuff, I let my agent handle that, and I haven't even had conversations, so it's not something I've even thought about. Like I said, 3 years left of my deal. So he may not be thinking about it, but obviously you have to be proactive when you're the Packers, and you want to move as much of that stuff to signing bonus so it doesn't hurt you against the cap so that you continue to add assets. And, look, Aaron Rodgers has been wanting for more surrounding talent. Everybody, I think, who likes what the Packers have done also understands that, look, you got to go out and spend some money in free agency, something they haven't wanted to do. They want to have homegrown players because they also think it helps them in terms of the bottom line. Here's the thing about Rodgers. He's the best quarterback in football, right? And it's weird. This kind of relates to what we talked about with the Dodgers, or we talked about with the Patriots when they went 18-0 and lost in the Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback. He's not the most accomplished quarterback. That's Tom Brady. But if you check every box for what you need to be a great quarterback, he's done it. He's won the biggest game. He's lifted his team to a higher level. This particular last year, yes, they lost in the NFC Championship game, and they fell behind the same way the Patriots fell behind. The difference is, they had two janitors playing cornerback against Julio Jones, the Atlanta Falcons, on the road when they got slobber knocked. He had a running back. He had a wide receiver playing running back. They've had to fix things on the fly. But if you just look at skill set wise, right? It takes toughness. He has it. It takes leadership. He has it. It takes arm strength. He has it. His arm's stronger than Brady's. He's more accurate in many ways. He's better on the move. He's got better feet. He doesn't get hurt. Mm-hmm. He's won big games. He's led great comebacks. He's turned around a season like this past year when he told people, hey, he basically did the major league, well, I guess got to win the whole thing, right? And that's I'm not quoting verbatim because this is a family show. Ollie knows the line.
No, I get that. That. Censored.
But we're okay saying that Aaron Rodgers I'm okay saying Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback I've ever seen play football, even though he hasn't won the 5 Super Bowls that Tom Brady has played, right? You're okay with that statement?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
But for whatever reason, Tom Brady's the GOAT because he's won 5 Super Bowls. Tom Brady's awesome.
Of course.
Awesome.
Of course.
And his leadership style is different. And he also has Belichick. And they've been able to do it different ways. His first Super Bowl, Brady was just a bit player. It was more the defense. And they tried to take some of the pressure off him because he was a young player who was in his second year in the NFL. And then it became his team. And then this year, look, Brady not only had the comeback, but came back without Rob Gronkowski, who was their best offensive weapon. Mm-hmm. They came back against the Falcons without Rob Gronkowski. Of course, didn't play. So, there's a lot of great things about Brady. I guess I don't understand the argument for why Rodgers can't be the greatest ever, even if he hasn't won the most Super Bowls ever. But I also don't understand why we can't consider that Patriots team among the greats ever, even though they didn't win the Super Bowl that year. These are what I like to call congruent arguments, right? I'm making the same argument for a team in football, for a team in basketball, or for the Dodgers this year in baseball as I would for Aaron Rodgers. You don't always have to win a championship to be the best.
Okay, so is this like apples to bananas or apples to oranges?
I like to say apples to apples is a congruent argument, but people make non-congruent arguments would be the apples to bananas.
That's the non-congruent. Now you've got Now
what kind of favorite kind of apple?
I don't have one. I'm allergic to apples.
You're allergic to apples.
I am.
See, these are things we wouldn't have learned had I not asked. But you do like bananas,
what
right?
do you like? You like Fuji apples? You like
Granny Smith? Granny Smith are my favorite. There's a wide variety of red apples that I do like.
Okay.
I don't like galas as much as other people do.
Gala apples.
Pink ladies are pretty good, especially when they're really crisp. I like apples with peanut butter. You want to know what the greatest thing ever? Have you ever had, I forget what it's called. It's cookie butter. You guys ever had cookie butter?
No. What is that?
Oh, my God. You guys don't know about cookie butter?
No.
Okay. You've been on Delta before, right?
Yes.
You know, like the Delta cookies, the Biscoff cookies?
Absolutely,
okay.
yes.
They basically emulsify those into a peanut butter-like substance. And that's the taste of
shut up. No way.
I'm not kidding you.
Where do you find this?
You can go at any supermarket, but like specifically Trader Joe's I know has this. But you can go to like any supermarket has some sort of cookie butter.
Is it heaven?
You're welcome. Huh?
Is it heaven?
It is heaven. It is as close to heaven as you can get. Put it on an apple and you'd be like, I'm
not putting it on my apple. I'll just eat a spoonful.
Well, you can eat a spoonful, but at least when you have an apple, it adds like to the crispness, and especially when you come upon fall apple season.
But what's a calorie?
Don't worry about that.
Yeah. Again, yeah.
Don't worry about that.
It's peanut butter, of course.
Don't worry about that. Let's get to Hollywood the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Earlier today, Doug and I discussed Rob Pelinka's bizarre and extremely over-the-top welcome he offered Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to the Lakers, and if you missed it, you need to hear this.
I would venture to guess there's people in the room that are familiar with the stories in the book of Genesis, where there was a time when the Israelites were wandering in the desert and all of a sudden bread came down from heaven. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what today feels like for us to have KCP join.
Okay, so in this metaphor, the broke-ass version of Rob Lowe, which is exactly what Rob Pelinka looks like, the Lakers are the Israelites.
Like a broke version. Like, Rob Lowe's a really good-looking guy, so if somebody says you look like Rob Lowe, that's not, even if you say you look...
He's the poor man's version of Rob Lowe.
All right, fine. Poor man's version of a really good-looking man is still a really good-looking man.
I didn't say he wasn't good-looking. He wasn't quite as good-looking, but that isn't the point here.
You did say broke-ass.
Okay, well, I stand by my...
I just want to point out.
I stand by my words. Anyhow, the Lakers here, in this scenario, are the Israelites, and KCP is the bread from heaven, manna, if you will. Now, Doc Rivers was asked about this, and he's, prompted if KCP is bread from heaven, what is Blake Griffin?
Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was introduced as bread falling from heaven yesterday. I just wanted to find out from you how important Blake is for this team if Kentavious is bread falling from heaven.
Well, if that's coming from heaven, I don't know what Blake would be then. I mean, my gosh, that would make him, God, I don't know. I mean, so, I don't know. I mean, listen, I tend to just try to worry about my house.
So yeah, this continues to escalate.
By the way, it was apparently, this is from Vern C, at Vern C2. He's like, I'm no biblical scholar, but even I know the references to Exodus, not to Genesis. So not only was Rob Pelinka completely over the top in his,
he's wrong.
in his double-breasted suit, like he's bringing, is double-breasted back in? I wasn't aware of that. You're bringing the haberdashery. Is double-breasted back in?
It's coming back in, but that's not nearly, the biggest violation here.
But he got the wrong book of the Bible.
Well, but here's the point. Okay, so if Blake Griffin is God, who is Kevin Durant? Is he Apollo? LeBron? Is he Zeus? Like, what are we doing here? This continues to escalate.
Well, again, you went biblical and then you went Greek mythology.
We have to go over to something else.
It's way over. It's the most agent thing ever, right? Like you and I have had different agents.
Yes.
And like at some point, they're like, "Look, I'm not that great a person. Okay, I know me. I'm okay. To get you 10%, just can you get the next deal done? You don't have to tell me how special I am, how groundbreaking my talent is."
All right, so you're over it. All right, let's move on then. Magic isn't the only Johnson who's a big fan of Lonzo Ball. In fact, his wife Cookie also has some really high expectations for him, and TMZ caught up with Cookie.
Do you feel that you think Lonzo Ball has potential to be just as good as Magic?
Yeah, I do.
Really?
Especially with Magic around training him.
Him being a Laker, that's in a step in the right place to become a Magic.
Oh, yeah. I think the Lakers look really good. It's very exciting.
Okay, so basketball wags, wives and girlfriends, are now even invested in Lonzo. How heavy are his shoulders getting, Doug?
I don't know what is Cookie supposed to say, right? What is she supposed to say?
She's on the spot.
Is she supposed to go like, and never be another Magic Johnson? There is one thing about Magic that I want to make sure and I state. There's this narrative that Kobe Bryant became the greatest Laker ever. Like, look, I grew up in L.A. I watched Magic Johnson. It's not really close. Magic was awe-inspiring. Like, actually, what Rob Pelinka said about KCP is more appropriate for Magic Johnson. Like, what he brought to basketball, what he brought to the city, the feeling you got when you sat down and watched a game where Magic Johnson played at the First Forum, Fabulous Forum, and the Great Western Forum, was that feeling of bread falling from heaven. Mm-hmm. So, we're putting cart a little bit ahead of horse. Mm-hmm. But part of that is the hype machine in which Lakers are trying to get people to buy season tickets, and that's what they've created.
Okay, from the NBA to the NFL, the Chargers, of course, moved to L.A., but their star quarterback, Phillip Rivers, says he is not moving. He is staying put in San Diego. So, Doug, how quickly will he get tired of this commute?
He lives in North County. Like, I don't think people don't understand the topography of Los Angeles and Orange County. They're going to train in Costa Mesa. Okay, so they're going to train Costa Mesa. Costa Mesa is not quite South County, but it's in central. It's on the coast. Costa Mesa Bluff. It's right next to Newport Beach. He lives in North County, San Diego. He's going to be commuting. He's not going to be commuting during traffic time. It'd probably take him 45 minutes to get to work, which is not a crazy commute.
And he has 8 kids. He probably doesn't want to pick up and move. I mean, we talked about that earlier.
I mean, the oldest kid could probably be his driver. Could probably be his driver.
Potentially, yeah. But still, think about that.
Having a driver sounds really cool. I kind of think like that's the most... would you
the
rather have
question.
a really nice car or a...
No.
What?
Would you rather have a personal photographer with you at all times, or would you rather have a driver?
Personal photographer? I thought personal chef or personal driver was the thing.
It can be whatever you want.
Chef or driver? Go.
Driver. I'm a terrible driver. I'm the worst driver.
I like driving my own car.
Okay.
Although you made fun of the rims on my car last night.
Oh my gosh.
Please don't talk about it. Please don't say it.
No?
But you made fun of the rims on my car.
You need to return that and claim that it's a lemon, because that was not
But
okay.
I like my car. So I would do personal chef, although I like to cook as well.
Personal chef.
People are overstating the move. He only has to go to Los Angeles 8 times plus 2 preseason games. That's 10 times that he can stay in a hotel wherever he wants or with the team the night before they play in Carson. Outside of that, it's a 45-minute drive, and he can get up and drive and be back at night, or he can get an apartment right on the beach in Newport Beach, which is 5 minutes from the office. I think the commute will work, and I think that's why the Chargers picked Central, Southern, Orange County, and Costa Mesa as opposed to picking the Valley like the Rams.
So you have no problem with it?
None. 45-minute drive is about right. You need 30-minute drive is about right. You need a little barrier between work and home. You don't want to live right next to where you work. You want to be able to catch your breath, a little bit of silence, a little bit of tunes, maybe a phone call.
Right.
And if you have a fast car, drive a little bit fast. I think he's a big pickup truck guy. Maybe he'll be fine.
Are your rims going to be all right if you go over 55?
Stop it. I didn't put what are those called? The donuts? It's not a donut.
They were not good.
And
the valet was even like, hey man, you're Doug Gottleb.
The valet actually said I didn't need to tip him because he got to drive my car. That's how much he liked my car.
He's lying.
Yeah, he wasn't lying.
There was also a Lamborghini parked,
That's
and the other.
Holly with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Chris Broussard, who is in fact more of a biblical scholar than me and Holly, joined us earlier, and he offered up his response to Rob Pelinka calling Kentavious Caldwell-Pope manna from heaven.
Look, I'm like you. I'm not that comfortable with the biblical metaphors for
basketball. And you actually know.
But if it's LeBron, maybe. If it's Paul George, but Kentavious Caldwell-Pope.
Yes.
What's he gonna say if they get LeBron? It's just all over.
It's the second coming.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
He is risen. That's it's going to be like Easter.
Like Jesus rose from the dead.
Yes.
The Lakers are rising from the dead because of LeBron.
Yes, I can't.
That's all you got left. Yeah,
that's really all. Or maybe he goes kind of more Greek mythology in the Phoenix. Phoenix is Greek mythology, right?
Yes,
I have no idea.
Rising from the ashes.
I know it from the Wu-Tang. One of the Wu-Tang.
Also
rising like
also interesting. What brought us to that metaphor. Okay, so I like it becomes one of those things to where people I think when you go so over the top with certain statements that you lost me. Like now, even when you have legitimate statements, I can't listen to it anymore. Like does every player the Lakers add, does every press conferences the Lakers have, does he have to kind of go above and beyond?
It's going to be hard.
Right?
There's
Like you went from manna from
now.
heaven for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who's a nice player, and he basically got a J.J. Redick deal, right? Like even J.J. joined us. Like he's like $23 million for 1 year is kind of, and it's because of they have to hit the floor of the salary cap, but they don't want to have that on the cap for the following year. And he's a good player, and he's a good veteran who can score, play off the basketball, and he'll benefit from playing in their style. And there's a lot of, they were trying to kiss up a little bit to Rich Paul, who's not just the agent for LeBron James, but he is the agent for LeBron James during this press conference. But when you go so far over the top, like, I do think that at some point people hit the off switch. Now, I don't like press conferences anyway, but especially now when they're relating KCP to manna from heaven. Like, it's
absurd.
It is absurd.
It's absurd.
But I mean, like, look, he compared Kobe to like Mozart and so many of the other all-time greats, which at least I thought it was over the top at the time. But he didn't go to the biblical lengths that he went yesterday with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. And, oh, yeah, by the way, he got the wrong book of the Bible.
I will now be texting
That's
you.
That's like John
3:16.
You know what they say in John 3:16? Thou shalt not covet thy. Wait,
that's not
John.
No.
That's not at all. That's not at all
don't
what
be
John
incorrect
3:16
about
plays.
it. If you're going to be crazy, don't be incorrect. Yeah.
Right. It's like when somebody quotes a movie line and they get the wrong movie line. They get the wrong movie or they butcher the movie line quote. Like, that's not.
Bro,
if you ain't
not
first, you're second. Like, no, it's ain't first, you're last. Right? That's Ricky Bobby Inc.
Right.
Have the Yankees changed their stripes? I believe they have, and I believe that Bryce Harper will not reap the benefits of the new Yankees. That's upcoming next. Doug Gottleb in for Colin all week. Holly Saunders only has 12 minutes remaining with us before we ship her off to Wichita, Kansas. She's big in Wichita, so am I. Home of the Wheat Shockers. She'll be there covering a USGA event, right? A women's junior USGA
It is,
event?
it is the boys junior. So we go to match play. Match play makes a difference. It's really fun.
Match play is, did you prefer match play or stroke play? You were a golfer in college.
Match play.
Match play.
It's you against them. And you love competition.
Yeah, mano a mano.
Right there. Yep.
But that's also not really golf, right? Golf is you against the course.
Right. And that's why it's a different animal. I love it when the pros like WGC match play and we see them with like the Ryder Cup. That's the greatest event in golf.
Yeah. That or the Phoenix Open, or maybe the Masters is the greatest event in golf if you really want to kind of get down to it.
I'm saying fun-wise. Yes, of course you've got the majors. Tradition-wise, Masters, U.S. Open, of course, which we have on our air. But Ryder Cup, there's nothing like it.
There is nothing like it. I would not go over the top and say it's the greatest event.
Okay.
There's fun, there's energy. It's like us against the world type thing, but I think some of it is totally over the top. And I also think that sometimes our fans embarrass themselves. It's still golf. There's still a level of decorum to which people act like it's the Phoenix Open and not an incredible.
You don't like the waste management.
No, it's not the waste management. It's that what's the whole
number 16.
Yeah, where people are just. I mean, they're just.
It's a stadium. They fill it up at TPC.
And everybody's hammered, and they're just yelling things out. Like, that's cool. That's Phoenix. That's the waste management.
For a minute, you like that. Okay, then you're back to the golf.
Not until. So Bryce Harper and Mike Trout go and head up at Anaheim Stadium one more time today. They both hit solo shots in the first inning. They're two of the brightest young stars. Mike Trout, arguably the best player in baseball. Bryce Harper right there in that conversation. And, of course, Bryce Harper is what we think is a year away from hitting free agency. And some people think he'll get upwards of $400 million as a free agent. But I don't know, did you guys hear what he said about one of the potential landing spot cities for Bryce Harper at the All-Star game? Take a listen.
I'm going to New York City for a couple of days. I want to get out there in about 3 days. So, you go there for 3 days. It gets pretty crazy and hectic. And, I want to go back home. So I love going back to D.C. There's nothing like it.
Now, the first thing is, he is right. D.C. is an incredible city. Like, probably two best cities that people don't talk about being the best cities on the East Coast. D.C. and San Francisco are unbelievable cities in terms of culture. There's a historical significance. They're both beautiful in their own specific. Like, he's not wrong there. But to say that when the assumption is, hey, if you're going to be a free agent and you're going to sign a 10-year deal in your prime, wouldn't the Yankees be a smart team to keep involved? And look, you could still sign in New York, and there's a certain non-New Yorker. Hey, Like, yeah, you've been to New York. You're staying in Midtown. That's not really New York. You know, if you sign for $400 million, you can live in Westchester County, have a couple of acres, and have a car service and take you into to the Bronx and get out of town and not have to deal with the nonsense of Manhattan anytime you want. But is it at least altogether possible that the Yankees aren't a player, and that's why he's taking an anti-New York sentiment, that he was told by Scott Boras, look, New York's not going to make a bidding. They already have a right fielder, Aaron Judge, who makes less than $1 million a year, and he's an MVP candidate. Mm-hmm. And the Yankees have now learned from their past, and they're not going to overspend on free agents. Instead, the way in which baseball works now, get as many talented players under club control as possible, get a great depth of quality starting arms, and then if you're going to spend money, make it on a great arm and on a bullpen getting ready for the playoffs, which look what they did yesterday. They went and reinvigorated their bullpen and got David Robertson. They bring him back as a setup guy. Todd Frazier gives them some pop in their lineup as a native New Jersey, New York area player. Like, I kind of think Bryce Harper wouldn't be saying this unless he knew New York wasn't an option. And as much as people think it's a foregone conclusion, he's going to sign a $400 million. Who's the players, right? Cubs don't need him. They have plenty of players.
Good point.
Dodgers have won 30 of 34. Maybe. I mean, the Angels, how is their long-term? And I understand that when Pujols signed his deal, they knew it was going to be more the back end of his prime as opposed to this will be in the prime of Bryce Harper. But, like, Boston, maybe? They're going to go to the playoffs without him. Why do they need to add $400 million to their payroll over a 10-year period? They don't. Maybe D.C. is, in fact, the best option, and this is just Boras sets the number at $400 million, and then when he signs for $300 million, hey, look, we saved you $100 million, when really you spent $300 million. Did you come to a conclusion as to whether or not driver or chef in 30 seconds, what America thinks is better?
I tweeted it out. I said, hey, help me settle the argument here with Gottleb. And overwhelming response, chef. People are saying, I can drive, but I really can't cook.
I like to drive, although you also like to walk out of your house and have somebody else ready to fight.
I love
traffic.
that. You
did a great job. It
Thank
was an
you.
absolute
Hope to
pleasure.
be back. Thanks, Doug.
I will be back tomorrow. This is The Herd.